too. I agree. That's the only thing. Yeah, it wasn't even exciting. It was just, I never heard Charles.
You really haven't known him? I'm not on it. It'd be cool if it went on.
He's soft-spoken. He's a preacher. So everybody's good. Loves everybody. Tries his best to help everybody. He just caught everybody off guard.
Excited, just right around the corner, man. You're out of here.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I just told somebody. Oh, I told
Yeah, I think so.
How you doing? How the kids doing?
Well, I'm just going to keep saying because I don't like getting up and down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks for coming. And everybody tuning in on YouTube now or later. All right, let's see, changes to the agenda. We're going to remove new business, E3, Town 75th Anniversary. Any other changes from council?
No, sir.
No?
I would like to add a discussion at some point in the night with regards to the repair of the storm drainage in the Oakland 400 block.
All right, remind me. Presentations, we have a Rapid Deploy Award presentation to Communications Officer Ashley Willis. Chief.
Thank you very much and good evening. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce a few folks that are present in the room that made a trek down to celebrate this with us. I'd like to recognize John Scott. He's the director of the Brevard County Emergency Management. I'd also like to recognize Heather Musoff, who is the Brevard County 911 Administrator. We're here tonight to celebrate Ashley and a wonderful job that she did when we got a 911 call and it was dropped. It went through Rapid Deploy and she got a signal. And I'll just briefly read a small segment and then I'll have Rapid Deploy come up. On May 1st, 2023, Ashley was covering a shift in the communications center when she received a 911 call that presented as a signal on Rapid Deploy. Signal calls are displayed when a person dials 911 but hangs up before the call is fully connected to the communications center. In those cases, the cell phone provider sends an alert to the communications center to indicate the call was attempted. It's a signal that is easy to miss if one is not paying attention. In this case, Ashley noticed and recognized its importance before it left her screen. And she called the number back. We actually got 2 911 hang-ups on that. While calling, Ashley dispatched officers to the last known location of the call. When the officers arrived on scene, they found a 7-month pregnant female who had just been battered by her husband. This led to a domestic violence battery arrest. Due to Ashley's situational awareness and attention to her equipment, officers arrived on scene very, very quickly and put an end to the violence. So I also would like to add that Ashley was named the officer or the employee of the quarter for the town just recently also. So without, this is Ashley. Come on up here, Ashley. It's Ashley Willis now. It was Ashley Rodriguez until May 10th, when she just got married to this guy sitting behind me. This lucky man. So I'd like at this time to introduce from Rapid Deploy Wes Jones. Katie Williams is behind the camera for us. And the CEO, Steve Raucher, if I can get you to come up, sir. Let me just step aside.
Good evening, honorable members. My name is Steve Raucher. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Rapid Deploy. And Rapid Deploy services the 911 industry in state and local across America. And it is an incredible honor. When we name a superstar, we do this once a quarter. And we have 11 statewide customers to give you an idea of the breadth of the platform. The whole of California, Arizona, Kansas, Kentucky, many states, 17 counties in Florida, of which Brevard very presently bought Rapid Deploy way back before COVID. And to give you an idea of the scale of this award, the last two organizations to receive this was Maui County for running the Maui fire response on our platform, and then Scottsdale, Arizona PD, who did an incredible similar kind of save by using the platform and the precise location that we generate in partnership with Apple and Google off the handset to actually do that response. And something that I say to all these telecommunicators that work these in an unseen role, typically called on the worst day of a caller's life, and they take these calls again and again and again, and to have the presence of mind to notice this little alert that's going off when the phone has not rung. That's what happened. The line did not ring, but there was a ping on the map and said, you know, this is a drop call, and it happened twice. And she was like, oh, that's a bit odd, right? I'm just putting words in your mouth, Ashley, but we spoke earlier. And that was enough for Ashley to realize she's going to send patrol. And she saved possibly 1 or even 2 lives that evening while she was covering a shift working as an evidence clerk during the daytime. So unbelievable. And the first of the first responders are 911 telecommunicators. So real pleasure to honor you, Ashley. Congratulations. I got an award. Don't go away. It's over here. Okay, excuse me. So this is our Rapid Deploy Superstar Award, and a huge pride to give that to you. Thank you, and congratulations, Ashley.
It's heavy. I'm scared of it.
Do you want to say anything?
Hi. I'm sure you guys have met me before. I am Ashley Willis now. If anything, I'm very shocked about getting this award on the grounds that I took it as it's my job to do this. And when I took the call, I was just treating it like in every single call I received. It might be important, it may not be, but I need someone to go there. I do want to thank my chief, Connor, for really showing me this one call actually did matter when I personally went, it's not that big of a deal. I did something, I did my job. So I do want to thank him for recognizing it when I didn't. I also want to recognize Heather, because I was told that when we reached out to her about the ping, because there was no voice contact, no phone call, there was no recording, she pointed out that this was very important because that's why the system was there, to catch things like this. And she mentioned that that's a great thing to catch and to tell me that I did a great job catching it. That meant a lot. So, and I also want to thank Rapid Deploy for doing this, because this really shocked me. I thought I was getting a certificate and like a nice email shout out going, good job. So when I found out they were actually coming personally to give me an award, it really put me in a mindset of they're actually recognizing a dispatcher, someone who you don't see, you only hear, and it really just makes me proud to be part of a team that tried so hard to go, we need to recognize these group of people who are alone in a room helping when they can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, that's my dad.
Proud dad. May my daughters grow up like yours.
Oh, wait, I got on video.
Thanks, Dad. Thank you. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Everybody's free to go if they want.
Oh, you don't want to stay? Yes. Stay. No problem.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Congratulations on your wedding. Thank you.
All right, moving on. The changes to the agenda I already went over, but I wasn't thinking. We'll move the noise ordinance after public announcements and consent agenda. Anyway, public comments, non-agenda items. Anybody wishing to speak on to town council for anything other than on the agenda? Jim.
I'm Jim Seaton from 601 North Miramar Avenue. As you are aware, I'm sure we're appealing the recent zoning and planning board's recent decisions. Hiring an attorney was not a step taken lightly. We originally had 10 property owners that were willing to fund some degree of the legal cost, but our attorney prefers not to work for a group. I think she said something about herding cats when there's a group, and so at this time, she's just representing 2 of us in this appeal. The first and most important point to make is that all that us local residents are asking is one simple thing: the proper interpretation and the rigorous enforcement of the Code of Ordinances. The ordinances are written with the goal of ensuring reasonable and controlled use of the property such that it is initially developed and subsequently modified properly. This means the right businesses at the right size at the right locations. This should be simple for everyone to understand, and is the reason we have zoning ordinances in the first place. My wife and I, as well as many others, did significant due diligence on the zoning and ordinances before ever investing in such high-priced property. My wife and I purchased our condo 14 years ago, and reading the ordinance at that time convinced us that even if there was an outdoor cafe allowed nearby, that no music would be allowed. And that's what the ordinance still say today. So council members, let me pose a hypothetical question to you. What if one of your neighbors decided they were going to open a petting zoo and maybe some pony rides in your neighborhood? If you read the ordinances, it's not a prohibited activity, at least not on the residential list. It immediately becomes a big hit, very popular with children and adults, and these activities clearly produce a bunch of nuisances for you and your neighbors, including roosters crowing in the early morning, the smell of lots of pony manure, traffic issues with people parking up and down the street. Let's further hypothesize that this situation comes to the town council and there's a parade of people saying that this is a wonderful business and please don't shut it down. Many of the speakers are from outside the town limits, but this is your neighborhood we're talking about. And as it turns out, the owner has offered pony ride coupons to anyone who speaks in their favor if they would come to the town council meeting. Is your official position going to be, gee, it's so popular with residents and non-residents that we can't take any action? Or will you do what I and my neighbors have done and insist that all the ordinances get properly interpreted and rigorously enforced? I think in that situation, you'd hire an attorney too. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Non-agenda items. All right. Public announcements. There are openings on the following boards and committees: Budget and Finance, Civil Service, Code Enforcement, Heritage Committee, and Pension Board for the general employees. Also, candidate qualifying packets for the 2024 municipal election are available at Town Hall. Qualifying period begins at noon, Thursday, August 8th, ends at noon on August 15th. Contact Town Clerk Molly Carr. Consent agenda. Any items to pull for that?
I would request to pull items 3 and 6.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, with tabling items 3 and 6 for discussion.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda with items 3 and 6, right? 3 and 6 pulled, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Doug?
So item 3 is regards to some budgeting, and there's an item on page 44 with regards to Orlando Park improvements for $60K. Includes direction that we're going to install a pickleball court.
Yes.
Have we discussed that as a council previously?
Not as a council, it's in the budget. The Parks and Rec Committee has voted on it, and before we would put it in there, we would come to you and get it approved.
Okay. We do realize that there are 9, or 8, excuse me, lined pickleball courts within the adjacent 2 miles of Indialantic.
Yeah, maybe,
Town Hall. So I'm just curious as to, and I want to make sure that we are not, if we approve it as a council, then we still have the ability to not pull it back. Because I would not like to see is Orlando Park lose its current capabilities, facilities, basketball courts, playground equipment, to make room for a pickleball court when we have ample pickleball court available to us and adjacent, nearby.
this is only putting the funds there, we decide to do it next year.
This is a next year thing?
Yeah.
Are you anti-pickleball?
Huh?
Are you anti-pickleball?
I played pickleball last night down at Flutie. I played it at Melbourne Beach at Rickman, and I played it in the Atlantic.
We've had a bunch of requests, that's why we,
Yeah, I'm aware. I want to make sure that we're not going to put a pickleball court in without having proper discussion on how it's going to be implemented, and if we, the council agrees with the reformatting of Orlando Park, because there are some third rails in the community, and I think Orlando Park is probably one of those. So we just want to be careful. That's my only question with item 3.
And so this is just an accounting.
this is an accounting thing, putting money for the budget for next year. So it's gonna be coming to budget meeting too.
Okay.
This is putting in our reserves.
Okay, so essentially right now, we're just saying, we're going to talk about it for next year's budget.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good with that. And then for item 6, it's replacing 3 council chamber doors. I don't disagree with that. It just seems, did we get multiple quotes? Because $30K seems awfully high. Last I replaced my slider doors, 3 holes, it was about $10K.
When we got the doors to the east done, they were the cheapest company to do them. So I just called them back up here to do the north side.
Okay.
I can get more quotes if you'd like, but
And aren't we required, just because of the magnitude of the purchase, that we need to have multiple quotes? Unless we have an
I can
existing
get some.
purchase order that's been competed?
I'll get some for you.
Okay. I'm all for replacing them, don't get me wrong, I understand they're original, 1990-something.
1991.
It just, okay. So we'll get some more quotes for 6, so we'll pull that for tonight, and we'll keep 3. So I'll make a motion to approve 3.
There a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of approving item number 3, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Moving on. Ordinance public hearing. We'll go to the noise. Ordinance 2024-09, second and final reading, public hearing relating to the, nope, that's the wrong one. Oh, it is the first one.
It's ordinance 2407, yeah.
There it is. All right. Ordinance 2024-07, second and final reading. Public hearing continued from last month and relating to the regulation of noise.
Ordinance number 2024-07, an ordinance of the town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, relating to the regulation of noise, making findings, providing for alternative methods of detecting noise disturbance, provided in section 22-60 Town Code of Ordinances, creating section 22-61 through 22-68 Town Code of Ordinances relating to provision of an alternative methodology for determination of noise disturbance, providing a statement of public policy, providing for the purpose and application, setting forth activities, the noise of which is exempt from regulation by this ordinance, providing activities that the noise of which is prohibited, prohibiting noise disturbance based on a plainly audible standard, regulating noise from construction activities, providing for warnings, providing for severability interpretation, and providing an effective date. And Mr. Mayor, before we get into this and conduct your public hearing, I'd like to do a couple of different things if I can. I want to make sure We've received, as council is aware, many email comments, and I want to make sure that those are referenced in the record. We've also received some petitions that have been presented as well. So I'd like to reference those and make those part of the record. The first petition that I have here is a petition consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pages. And this petition basically is in favor of adoption of the plainly audible standard ordinance and modifying the affected area within its applicable, which is an amendment that will probably be discussed tonight. The other petition I have is 1, 2, 3. Is a 10-page petition, basically in opposition to the plainly audible. I have the following emails dated June 10th from Paul Kowalski, dated June 10th from Jim Seaton, dated June 10th from John Yates, dated June 11th from Steve Shaver, dated June the 11th from Mike Bauman, dated June the 12th from a property, Lori and Craig Cockrell. Email dated June 11th from Bob Lowry. Another email which is undated, and that is from Bob Lowry. I also have a email from Joe and Robin Riley dated June 17th. Another email dated June the 17th from Jim Seaton. An email from Whitney Bobbitt that is dated June the 25th. Email dated June the 24th. That is from Joanne Sealing. Email dated July the 1st, again from Joanne Sealing. Email dated July 1st from Andrea Arell. Email from Cynthia Bernstein, which is dated July the 3rd. Email dated July the 3rd from Cynthia Bernstein. Email from Claudia Esposito dated July 7th. Email dated July the 8th from Mr. and Mrs. Seaton. And another email dated July the 8th from Paul Kowalski. Email dated July the 8th from Carla Rodiger. Email dated July the 8th from Robert Lowry. Email dated May the 8th from Mr. Lowry. Email dated July the 8th from Jim Seaton. And I believe that concludes all of the emails and the petitions. Just checking to make sure. Yes, it does. So we would like to make those part of the record. In addition, staff has had a discussion with you, Mr. Mayor, concerning this ordinance, and as a result of that discussion, I think it's in the public interest to consider adoption of an amendment to the ordinance, which is probably not, I think will probably not be particularly controversial, at least hopefully. And I have passed out a memo dated July 8th that shows the changes to section 22-66. And for the audience, for their benefit, just so we know what's being proposed to be changed, there's language in the ordinance that says it's preferable to use a sound meter. We would be striking that language. Therefore, it's fine to use the plainly audible standard. And we're adding, there are 12 different factors that could be considered by a code enforcement officer in determining whether to cite somebody for a violation of the plainly audible standard, and including the following language. In assessing any noise alleged to be in violation of this code, the enforcement officer is not required to find a violation of each or any of the foregoing individual standards. Rather, the foregoing list is intended as a non-exclusive list of standards, factors, or considerations that may support the finding of a violation of this code. Whether to cite a violation or upon what basis to cite a violation of this code shall be left to the prosecutorial discretion of the enforcement officer. So we would, at the appropriate time, recommend that amendment to council for discussion and consideration.
Comments on those changes?
I believe the comments, I won't put words in the chief's mouth, but I believe these might address some of his concerns. We'll talk to him later after public comments to hear his take on this.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, the proposal has been circulated and reviewed by both the manager and the chief, so they're up to speed on this.
Thank you, Paul.
Their motion? Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-07 with regards to noise disturbances.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
With or without the amendment?
With the amendment.
All right, discussion. Sue?
We always have a discussion. You know, I've spent a number of days, nights looking at this. I've read all the emails more than once. And I come to a conclusion. And the conclusion's very simple. We have two properties who are in contention about what's acceptable use. One's a condo, one's a business. They happen to be located relatively close to each other. They're both also in their tourist district. It's important that we mention the tourist district. It extends from a little bit north of Watson, south to Tampa Avenue, along A1A, Wavecrest, and it's bordered by the ocean and beaches. But what is allowed in the tourist district? It's probably our broadest zoning area. So let's just briefly, first of all, condos, apartments, rental apartments, single-family dwellings. We have townhouses. We have a bed and breakfast. We have commercial. We have commercial properties or commercial restaurants. We have anything allowed in the RP district. We also have retail stores in that area. We have a park. We have, including in the park, a playground. We have the beaches, and of course the ocean. It's broad, and acceptable uses are quite diverse. I'm not sure this is in the best interest of the entire community, to be very honest.
In terms of the application of this noise ordinance broadly across the community?
Yes. Now, in addition, we can go in addition to that if you want. As you and I heard, the state of Florida is very pro-business, the legislature and the governor. This could come under consideration, and we don't want to step on our toes.
Well, I believe the Attorney Googleman's positioned it such that it would, I forget the word, but be buttressed by the Brevard County Code, such that if something were to be determined, we would be consistent, if that, for whatever that's worth. I mean, legally, it has some basis, I can understand.
And one last question, Paul. Are we required to do a business impact statement?
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yes.
I can tell you that a business impact statement has not been done on this ordinance, so that will have to be done, and then the ordinance will need to, if you approve it tonight, it will need to come back for another reading at the next council meeting after the business impact statement has been published.
And is that a first reading or second reading?
It's a third reading.
Third reading, okay. Additionally, there's some statistics I think the chief would like to share. I don't know if you want to do it now, or should we wait? Your call.
We'll roll down the line and then we'll, Chief, that good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's your pleasure.
Doug?
I have many questions. Some of them may occur during the public comment, just to shed some light on things. Some of them, for now, generally, I'm not opposed to the ordinance. I can understand from your perspective, Stu, that perhaps it's not what the town wants in terms of the broader application. I think that how the ordinance gets enforced is really the meat of the matter here. Is this change going to result in anything meaningful, or is it going to be, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, or is it going to be that we're going to continue to administer the noise ordinance essentially the same as it is today? And what we're doing is we're changing the wording, but in effect, the expectation from the code enforcement or police department is in effect unchanged in how it gets enforced effectively. The other aspect of this is, I want to be very clear, this is not directed at a single business. This ordinance change came about through a code review that the town has been undertaking to just review our ordinances. It just so happens to coincide with certain events. So this is not intended to be directed at any one person or business, although it's certainly been impacted by that. So I think it's important that we consider this broadly across the entirety of the town. I know there's been discussion upon having a different noise ordinance for residential versus commercial. I think given the size of the town that we live in, I think that's impractical. I think you end up with basically a very small area where you can actually have a separate noise ordinance and it doesn't really mean anything. I do think the code itself as it's written probably needs to be updated. If we did nothing else other than just update the wording for the decibel levels to be more consistent with how the county has it right now, that may need to be revisited if we don't adopt the plainly audible standard. But again, I really want to hold some more questions until we get into the meat and potatoes of how noise ordinances are actually enforced in our town and when things are cited and how is it, and what are the ramifications of that?
Lauren?
Yeah, I read the emails, I reread them. Most of you know me to be thoughtful about things and try to look at things in a level-headed both ways. I ended up writing something. I'm going to read it because I gave a lot of thought to it, and I felt it would be better than just trying to put it off the top of my head. The town's existing noise ordinance may be interpreted to allow unlimited noise levels during daytime hours 7:01 a.m. to 9:59 p.m. under Chapter 22, Article 2, Section 33 of the town's ordinances that excludes demolition, excavation, erection, or repair of buildings. Further, noise level enforcement depends on how Section 2257 is enforced regarding amplified sound that is, quote, cast upon the public streets of the town for any purpose, and therefore requires a permit. This ordinance is before us because the parties involved have not solved the problem to their own mutual satisfaction. The core issue, I'm thinking, is the volume of sound allowed during the daytime hours and how the law is enforced. Some residents find that certain sounds disturb the peace on their property. Some residents and business and owners and staff find that certain sounds enhance their dining experience. Peace and tranquility in a home is considered against the ability to provide services to please patrons. So when I considered the guiding principles at the federal and state level, taking into account also previous conversations that have come before us for public comment, I was struck by the equal protection under the law found in our 14th Amendment of the Constitution and Florida Article 1, Section 2, which guarantees that all persons are equal and before the law. So concerns raised to a governmental body are to be heard and addressed, whether coming from one person or 100 people, or if a property owner lives here for 1 week to 1 year, if the person is a resident, patron, or business owner, and so on. Arguments that attack the character of the circumstances or the parties involved are ad hominem fallacies. The focus should be on whether the noise ordinance serves the best interests of the community, not on disqualifying certain voices. Our town charter, section 103, is part of our foundational rules and emphasizes that our town is primarily a place for people to live. Any other uses of land, like businesses, should be minor and serve residents. Indialantic's comprehensive plan, the future land element, Goal 1, guides how our town is developed. It focuses on keeping the town mostly made up of homes. This goal recognizes that some commercial and professional uses are necessary, but should be secondary to residential use. I interpreted residential use to mean the town's land is primarily for homes and living spaces, creating a neighborhood atmosphere. Commercial and professional areas are allowed, but must support and serve the residential community without overpowering it. Therefore, our town's charter and comprehensive plan clearly prioritize residential use and the tranquility associated with enjoying one's home in peace. Some points I considered is that some condominium owners have reported the music from a nearby hotel's dining area is intrusive and negatively impacts their quality of life. This indicates a significant issue that affects the residents' ability to enjoy their homes in peace. The proposed noise ordinance mirrors Brevard County's is designed to ensure the businesses do not create excessive noise that disrupts the residential environment, including daytime hours. I think it aims to strike a balance between allowing businesses to operate and protecting residents from undue disturbances. I listened to all the arguments made in the emails and the range of comments made. When you argue that a resident must choose between a pleasant dining experience with music and a noise ordinance is what I consider a false dilemma fallacy. It ignores the possibility that businesses can still provide a pleasant dining experience without excessive noise. Arguing that the noise ordinance is unnecessary based on personal enjoyment of the music overlooks the broader impact on other residents. It's a hasty generalization fallacy. It generalizes individual satisfaction to the entire community, disregarding those negatively affected. Arguing the noise ordinance is unnecessary because the business supports residents' happiness or generates tax income to the town or provides gainful employment, while valuable, is begging the question. This circular reasoning fails to address the particular core issue of noise disturbances affecting residential use. Arguing that some residents want a specific business shut down is a straw man fallacy. This claim misrepresents an argument to make it easier to knock the straw man over. Several of those who support the noise ordinance have recognized the value of a specific business and its right to exist. So I thought the last two things are really the implication if the ordinance is passed and if it's not passed, what may happen. Implementing the noise ordinance may protect the peace and quiet that residents are entitled in their homes, aligning with the town's charter and comp plan. The ordinance will ensure that businesses can continue to operate and contribute to the local economy, balancing interests without compromising residents' comfort and tranquility. And passing the ordinance may uphold the town's legal framework, which prioritizes residential interests and requires other land use to be secondary and non-intrusive. There are also implications of not passing the ordinance. Nearby homeowners may continue to experience noise that they consider intrusive, leading to ongoing complaints and frustrations. Noise pollution may contribute to stress or sleep disturbances or other health problems affecting well-being. There could be ongoing noise issue that can exacerbate tension between residents and businesses, leading to more frequent conflicts in a divided community, and residents may feel their concerns are not being adequately addressed by local government, leading to decreased trust in town leadership, and that can go both ways for both parties. Not addressing the noise issue conflicts with the town charters and comp plan, which prioritize the residential character of the town. This could set a precedent for future decisions that disregard these foundational concepts. Persistent noise issues can lead to decreased property values in affected area, as potential buyers may be deterred from buying there, and some residents may choose to move away from the area to seek a quieter and more peaceful living environment, leading to a potential decline in the residential population. This is a tough one to find the balance, so I hope you hear that I thought a lot about it. I wanted to write out the reasoning and expose it to all of you in the community to see what you had to say. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, so like the other council members, I've put a lot of thought into this. So the overall idea of, updating our noise ordinance, I'm in favor of. As currently drafted, I kind of pivoted and I'm not in favor of what we have presently for vote. This really boils down, there's a lot of language in here, right? This really boils down to a few crucial things, and it's mainly the plainly audible standard, right? And that plainly audible standard, it comes down to two definitions, right? It's noise disturbance, what the definition of a noise disturbance is, and then what the definition of plainly audible, right? I'm in favor of adding the plainly audible aspect of it because clearly our officers don't all have the sound meters, right? And even if they did, there's situations where maybe it's not working, it doesn't have batteries, whatever. And there might be an egregious situation, with a house around the corner, my 2-year-old can't sleep, we've given them, every courtesy we could, and something needs to be done, right? So therefore, it would be helpful to be able to rely on the plainly audible standard. And let me back up real quick. There is a current dispute between two parties. That is only but one consideration. In reality, I'm looking at the whole entire town, so that's where the analysis is coming from, not these particular parties that are having a dispute. So I'm in favor of the plainly audible aspect of it. When you think about the nuts and bolts of how this would actually be enforced, right? The noise disturbance is the key definition. So it's means any sound or vibration or combination of sounds or vibrations which may disturb, annoy, or be harmful or injurious to the health, welfare, or of a reasonable person of ordinary sensibilities. Okay? No, but that right there is super important because everyone who's afraid of this needs to realize that a reasonable officer of ordinary sensibilities is going to be making this determination. So a lot of what might be currently complained about shouldn't necessarily be an issue. I mean, I guess it depends on the particular time of day. It's all very fact dependent, right? So then the next part of that definition is which, because of its volume or quality or time of day, tends to annoy, disturb, frighten, or otherwise cause an adverse psychological or physiological effect upon a reasonable person of normal sensitivity, or unreasonably prevents such person from being able to enjoy his or her activities of daily living. So again, this is the crucial part right here. I think applying that to the vast majority of situations, we're gonna come to find that there's not really gonna be a big issue that all the citizens or businesses need to worry about or be fearful of. Because again, then further down, it's the initial action taken is a warning, right? So it's not like all of a sudden they're getting slapped, on the wrist and getting hit with a fine and having to shut down business. No, we're just talking about, okay, is this reasonable in the circumstances? What's going on right now with the amount of noise that's being emitted here, based on all these factual considerations? And if it's not, okay, hey, please, cooperate with us, be a good neighbor, right? So that's kind of really what it boils down to, the crux of it. But there's all this other additional language in here as far as, and again, this is why I pivoted, because, you know, I was initially like, okay, well, the county enacted this, let's start off with what the county did, and then we can curtail it from there if we need be. But this has clearly become a huge issue between two particular parties, so I think it would be better if we kind of went back to the drawing board, started simple on this. We have a whole section here about exempt activities. That can just go right out the window, in my opinion, because again, the core of it is about that noise disturbance definition and whether it's plainly audible. Now, the plainly audible has, you know, certain factors about the time of day and the distance. I still think those aspects need to be figured out because there are considerations with the time of day that I think we need to account for. Is it Sunday through Thursday? Or is it Friday and Saturday? It's just like, you know, commercial businesses are open at certain different times. I think we need to account for that and be able to adjust for it. And potentially account and adjust for the tourist district. Other areas, I'm not quite sure, but, you know, like the tourist, because it would be tough if you tried to do it for the commercial, considering it abuts right to residential, you know what I mean, like right behind it. But the tourist district, I feel like we might be able to create different requirements there. Sorry, I know I'm going all over the place with my thoughts here. So I think the exceptions, we can just do away with all of that. Then there's this, the aspect where it's specific activities prohibited. If there's a qualification on this that makes it clear that every single one of these is prohibited because it is in relation to a noise disturbance, then I'd be okay with that. But I don't know if you guys read like each one of these enumerations. Some of them don't clearly state that it's in relation to a noise disturbance. So then it's like, oh, well, we're kind of over-regulating here as far as, you know, what the intent of this is supposed to be, right? It's about noise. So, and I could pretty much do away with that, but if we're gonna leave that, let's tie it to being a noise disturbance. The actual section 22-66 that Paul has proposed amendments, which I appreciate and support, I ended up kind of redrafting that section myself, and I can provide that. I think that needs to be reworked on a couple of other areas. It kind of contradicts itself right now, in the sense that a violation, you know, can be determined by the police officer or enforcement officer, but then also just based upon evidence provided by witnesses. If we're establishing it based upon evidence provided by witnesses without the officer making the determination independently, it needs to be clear that it follows the same like stringent requirements that also apply to it if the officer does it independently. It's not clear right now, so about that. Then we get to the construction, hours of operation. I mean, this one's really scary. It is prohibited and unlawful for a person to operate or permit the operation of any tools or equipment in construction activity, drilling, or demolition work of any type or nature, pretty darn broad, outside the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, or any time on Sunday. Well, I am up the creek without a paddle because I work a lot and it's the weekends when I can actually work on some house projects, you know? So that's just far too broad in my opinion. Also, with the warnings being issued, which I like, you know, hey, turn it down, okay, they're trying to work with us, give a reasonable time. A reasonable time shall generally be deemed immediately. That doesn't seem reasonable. Or so long as it would take to take a reasonable, diligent person to reduce the noise, but shall not exceed 5 minutes. I mean, I can envision a scenario where there's a house party, you're having a bunch of people over for a celebration of some sort, right, really excited, and people complain, okay, we're trying to cooperate. It could take a half an hour to like, kind of shuffle everybody out, or like, you know, 5 minutes doesn't seem reasonable. So, point being, I'm in favor of the idea of the plainly audible standard, but I think we need to drastically simplify this and bring it down to its core, that it's, you know, the standard of reasonableness for a person of ordinary sensibility, take out a bunch of the exceptions, other prohibitions, and then the difficult part is gonna be the time of day and the distance.
That's why I like having a lawyer on council.
Yeah.
Thoughts, or Paul, do you have any input on rewriting it? for some of those?
No, I think that, that's certainly an option. And in the past, we've talked about maybe making some amendments to this, which we've kind of tried to resist. The reason for it is so that we have an ordinance that is basically mirrors and is consistent with the county ordinance. The idea is that the county ordinance covers the entire unincorporated area of Brevard County, which is a huge area. And if there's going to be some problem where there's a dispute that ends up in court as to the enforcement of the ordinance, the chances of it happening in unincorporated Brevard County are far and away greater than Indialantic. And if there's litigation with regard to the county ordinance, and the county ordinance is upheld, well, since our ordinance is the same as the county ordinance, arguably the result should be the same. On the other hand, is if a provision of the county ordinance is knocked out by the court, well, that's probably a message to us that since our ordinance does mirror the county ordinance, that we need to revise that portion. And I've made that point in the past. Now, you're at the point now where the rubber hits the road. And the question is, you're aware of that concept, you're aware of the consistency argument, but, you know, based on what you find in your examination of the ordinance, what you hear from public testimony during the public hearing, you may decide to adopt something somewhat different or totally different, and that's what you're elected to do. So, you know, if you want to change it, then let's change it. If you don't want to change it, then let's keep it as it is. It's, you know, and of course, there's nothing that says you need to adopt anything anyway. It's all up to you. That's what you're elected to, is make that decision.
Stu, what are your thoughts on
Well, first, I agree.
some of Brett?
I agree with Brett. I'm really concerned about the noise, the instrument for measuring noise. If you go to lines 225 through 237, if you're not an engineer, I don't know how you'd ever apply it. And I've worked in this field, not as part of the field I worked in included this. It's a bugger to actually measure this stuff and do it accurately and repeatably. You know, it requires continuous calibration. It requires quite an understanding, because low frequencies travel better further distances than high frequencies. You know, what's the peak number? What's RMS? Are you seeing a spike and that's a peak number? Is that an RMS number? It's very complicated. So I'm very much in favor of taking that out. It's going to be nothing but problematic in my view.
So you're in favor of taking what we have and maybe rewriting it and coming back again?
Exactly. I think Brett makes some very good points, and
I agree.
And I agree with everybody else too, by the way.
Stuart, are you concerned that it's complicated to run the noise meter itself? Is that what you're saying, that the training and the device?
It's a little more than that. Yes is the general answer, but when you look at a noise meter, you've got to determine what's the noise floor, what frequencies comprise that noise floor, what is your peak, and is it a peak or is it continuous over a period of time? That's the RMS standard. Can you actually demonstrate that? Now, some of the more sophisticated equipment will record, you know, so many seconds before, so many seconds after a peak. It's still going to be very debatable, you know, was the officer, you know, trained properly to do that? Was that meter recently calibrated? Was it set in a free air space? This is much more complicated than a phone. A phone, it's a great approximation, but it's not really a true instrument. It's an approximation. If it's in a case, if it's in your hand, it's going to be completely different.
But the code itself is based on the average decibel readings, right? You mentioned a lot of other factors that aren't in the actual existing code. The meter's self-calibrating, is that correct, Chief? Each time you can calibrate, or you can tell the meter to calibrate itself?
It'll reset. We had to buy a separate calibration machine for it, but it does show before the reading and after the reading whether or not it was calibrated.
Okay, and does it take average, if you looked at the current one, would you use it to look at average levels, or as Stu's saying, are you taking peaks and other types of stuff. I haven't seen that in any of the police reports that they've looked at. I haven't seen any of those in the officers' remarks.
Because we haven't used it.
So Lauren, before we get too far down the rabbit hole on that, on the specifics, do we want to visit redoing it and coming back?
So, in my opinion, it's because we're here as a council, I think it would be very useful for us to understand how a noise ordinance is administered, enforced, warned, and actually cited when that actually does occur, so that that would inform us how the tools of this ordinance would be used, and if we should consider, how we should consider rewriting the ordinance if we were to rewrite it.
I agree with that.
Because I think we're not following the ordinance to the letter of the law, nor do we want to be clear.
So
that
Chief?
Brett can drill wood on Sunday.
Yeah.
Can we have the chief
Yeah.
give us a historical background on this?
Thank you. If I may stay seated, with respect, I have a lot of stuff here, a lot of notes. My opinion on this is leave it alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know you guys have put a lot of work into it. You've heard a lot of both sides. I've seen everything also. The officers have used discretion in the past and it's worked out. In the 26 going on 27 years that I've been here, I have never once seen anybody arrested for violating a noise ordinance. When the officers receive a noise complaint, they show up on scene, they make contact with the offending party, they let them know this is too loud and this is why it's too loud. And 99 times out of 100, we get compliance almost immediately.
And Chief, if I may interrupt, how do you ascertain if it's too loud or not? Just
By
clarity.
common sense.
So
But every call for service, we're going to respond.
Please. Please.
Quiet, please.
So in essence, it's a administrative,
audible
it's
standard.
plainly audible standard, if I may.
Would be a standard, semantic-wise, yes, that's the
Fair
standard
enough.
that we use currently.
And
And I
how
think
do you-
changing the ordinance just opens a Pandora's box for other things
Yeah,
down the
and
road.
sorry, hold on, I just want to pull the string. When you do administer that, how do you consider distance or time of day and the ambient noise sound?
Of course, and it also, I mean, it just boils down to, like I said, if we get a call for service, we're going to respond. It's clearly too loud for somebody.
Right.
We go up there and make the determination at that point, and we'll let them know, we received a complaint at this residence, this is the complaint, and they comply. We just don't have an issue with it. We haven't had any issues. We get very few actual noise ordinance complaints. We get disturbance calls, but we get very few noise complaints that are in violation of the noise ordinance, historically.
And I know we have the data here, but I'm asking leading questions. So in the last year, how many noise and / disturbances? Oh, you don't have, we had approximately
So,
about 162? No.
so I did a report,
70,
because I saw this was coming, excuse me.
63.
So I ran a report from, and I personally did this, from July 3rd of 2023 to July 3rd of 2024. And I broke it down by disturbance calls, because that was the factor that I really wanted to focus on, ordinance violation calls and information calls. And I did focus on Blue Beach Resort, and I also focused on some other things that went into this report. So for that year time period, we received a total of 79 disturbance calls all through town. That's every call that we got for that year period. Only 6 of those were at Blue Beach. We had, and of those 6, we had 4 that were for noise and 2 that were for other things. One was for a disturbance in a room with a guest where Blue Beach was the complainant. We had one where a disturbance was between 2 males. So then I looked further and I said, okay, let me look into ordinance violations, because these got classed into 3 different things. We're trying to clean that up and That's an internal thing that we're working on. But I looked at every single ordinance violation call for that 1 year period, and we had 63 throughout town. Of those 63, we had 4 at Blue Beach Resort. 2 of those were for noise, and 2 were for other things. One was lights on the beach. They were actually both for lights on the beach. And then I went even broader, and I went into our information calls, which is kind of a catch-all thing. We had 162 information calls for that 1 year period, and of those information calls, we had 5 that were from Blue Beach, 2 were for noise, and 3 were for other things. 1 was for a washed-up boat behind the property, 1 was for a trespassing and harassment that we took a report on, and then 1 was for delivery trucks blocking the entrance. So I know it's difficult to see up there.
So Chief, based on these numbers, is this a significant percentage of the calls that IP receives, or?
It is not. I mean, 4, 6, we had 8 calls for that 1 year period that were specific to noise at that property.
And was anybody out of these 79 or 63 ordinance violations for noise, was anybody issued a citation?
They were not.
Thank you.
So to clarify, though, my position is that nothing needs to be changed as far as the current practice by the officers, but the code needs to match the practice.
Right.
And that's where the plainly audible has to be added, very, plainly, right? But simply, not like a very long, drawn-out, extensive county version. And then that way, because if you think about it, without the meter, when you're doing a warning, you're warning, at least as tied to the code, you're warning about nothing, because it wouldn't be enforceable thereafter, right? But once you have the plainly audible, then it is. Not that I really think there's ever going to be a situation where it has to go beyond a warning, but at least the practice and the language, will coincide and match up together.
May I ask a question of Chief?
Sure.
Chief, daytime hours for noise disturbances, what would you, 7:01 to 9:59, what the current code would address a noise disturbance during that time?
I don't understand the question. I would use our existing code.
Okay,
It
and which
sets the-
section would we, the challenge I had when I was reading through it is that it has the daytime, it has evening hours, right, for noise levels. That's when the decibel meter kicks in, or the current way that you use plainly audible. When you look at Chapter 22, Article 2, Section 2233, what applies to the daytime hours? Could someone sit in their garage, play their drums as loud as they wanted during that time?
Yes, under the current ordinance, yes.
Okay, what about someone playing music through their stereo at that time?
If it spills onto the street, then it's amplified music and it's treated as such.
Okay, so the fact that it can be heard from the street, regardless of intent, person may be enjoying at a level that they're really rocking out to and enjoying, but the fact that it's heard on the street then would trigger this, because you'd say that it would need a permit, because that then falls under Section 2257? Because that talks about amplified noise.
Correct.
Okay, so so we have an issue with amplified versus unamplified noise. Unamplified noise, playing a drum as loudly as you want, wouldn't be an issue if it spills on the street.
Right.
But having music that's amplified would.
Right. Yes, and then again, we're responding to a call for service. I don't expect any of my officers to drive down the road and shut down a 5-piece band in their garage that they just happen to stumble on, unless we get a call for service. We get a
Yeah, no,
complaint.
I get it. It's not something that you would detect necessarily. What I'm trying to get at is just understanding how you enforce during the daytime hours, because that's
We just
part of
make, yeah, we make them aware that we've received a call and ask them to kindly turn it down.
Okay, and especially for amplified stuff. Okay, that's helpful.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Chief.
Chief, okay, Lauren mentioned music. What about somebody just using a chainsaw to cut a tree, trim a tree? That's every day in this town somewhere.
And we've had that complaint, and I mean, we go by and just tell them, we've received a complaint, whether they comply or not, it is what it is. I'm not gonna stop an Asplund truck from doing what they're doing during the daytime, or, Councilman Miller doing his housework on the weekends. If it's within the specified time, then it's allowable. It's understandable, it's reasonable.
A reasonable person of ordinary sensibility would deem it okay.
Right, and the proposed ordinance has that as an exemption anyway, so it wouldn't even be worthy of you showing up to enforce it. So let's get back to rewriting it. Is that something we want to do?
I'm 100% yes.
All right. You want a motion?
Well, I would just say that if for nothing else other than to remove the either conflicting or inconsistent wording with regards to some of the other areas that Councilman Miller has highlighted, we should at least consider rewriting that portion of the noise ordinance. So just bring it up to snuff. Whether we decide to touch the actual enforcement side of it.
Right.
The hours and the distance, if we add those in there, or the hours we already have, they exist. There's just no distance specification. It's all decibel meter related.
I'm going to ask Paul one question on that. Paul, with the estoppel, you used that last time to say that that was valuable to adopt this. How many times has a law come up that Indialantic really has been helped by the fact that fell under estoppel? You didn't really cite how many times it helps us. I can't remember in my memory when something we did said, hey, because it mirrors something, it's really good.
I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of an instance. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but.
Okay, so I'm open to a rewrite then.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Do we need a motion for that?
Well, I think we want to go through how we want to, do you want me to work with Councilman Miller and?
I would.
Have him suggest some suggestions to cross out, and then we'll bring back for the next, hopefully for the next meeting, we'll bring back a cleaned up version of it.
I think as council, we probably ought to have a discussion on time and distance if we want to make changes to any of those, because right now the ordinance is consistent in time with the county, but there is no distance. So if we're going to add distance, we need to have that discussion tonight. So otherwise,
Well, when you say distance.
if we're going to recommend that we include a distance stipulation on the plainly audible spectrum,
Like the 300 feet?
300 to 150 feet, yeah, based on the time of day.
Yeah, I think that's probably something, maybe you want to wait till you get the cleaned up version to see whether you want to amend it further. Or,
I don't want to kick this can further down the road.
well, if we're gonna clean this up and change it or whatever, you're gonna have to look at it again, and we're basically.
Fair enough. I just want to be, I would like to have a discussion tonight on if we think 150, 300 is the right number, or if it's a different number.
Oh, okay.
That's the straightest way I can put it.
I'm good with 300, 150.
That's fine. I just want to have that. I want to get that on record so
Yeah.
that we can give guidance to,
Or do we even need that? Because it could just be,
let's ask the man, the chief.
I think when you get into that technical aspect of it, you almost create more issues, right?
That's why I want to have the discussion.
Yeah, I think it would be more, and we can craft the language, but something about, the position of the complainant, right? So there could be scenarios where they're 500 feet away or they're 50, 50 feet could be reasonable or unreasonable in certain circumstances, and 500 could be reasonable or unreasonable in certain circumstances. Again, no matter what, this really all boils down to that definition of noise disturbance and it being based upon a reasonable individual with ordinary sensibilities, whether or not it's gonna
I'll go back to what I said in May. The ordinance isn't going to fix the dispute between these two parties. So we should not try to solve that dispute with this
Well, again,
ordinance.
that's
We should, I understand, I'm just saying it for effect. That this ordinance is for the broader town. We have a Wendy's property that's going to be up for sale. Maybe what goes in there, maybe it's a restaurant with a rooftop bar. Maybe Dijon decides they want to start holding Saturday Night Music Fest.
everything that becomes.
So all of that,
council,
yeah, this
as
needs,
far as I'm
yeah.
concerned, is never about
Yeah,
any specific
yeah.
instance. It's about every possible situation, including all the future ones that we haven't even thought of. So.
Correct.
I'm not
Correct.
trying to, legislate any particular scenario.
We can use the current situation as a benchmark to inform us.
It's one example
Yes,
of a
exactly.
scenario to consider.
Right, I suggest you work with Paul and then we come back. Yeah, and then we can talk about distance, how it applies.
Are we suggesting to remove the decibel meter? To Stu's point, I'm trying to understand whether that is to remain or not. It's not being used as a tool. Should that remain in the code then?
I think you have if it is currently written, you can use either one. So
Right.
You can leave it in there, and then it's at the officer's discretion if they decide to use it or not. Or you could strike it.
Stu, how do you feel about that?
I think using the meter, and it's just not the right answer. It's kind of a safety factor. The plain and audible is the important part. You know, if it's a 20,000 hertz signal that reads 65 dBs, is that audible to somebody 300 feet away? The answer is probably not. If it's a 20 hertz, is it audible? Probably yes. So it's really, it's an extremely difficult professional decision, how to use it, how to interpret it. And we need something that's easy to understand. Somebody can call the non-emergency number for the police department, ask for an officer to respond. The officer can respond and use his best judgment.
So Chief, if there is no distance specified as there is currently today, would you see an advantage to having a distance specified? Would that improve, degrade, or make no change to the way you enforce?
No, sir, it wouldn't make any change. I don't think it's necessary.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, with regard to a meter, let me tell you that, first of all, I think our ordinance is questionable in that regard. It's old. This ordinance has not been updated as far as the decibel meter provisions that are in there. And there has been, over the last 20, 30 years, there's been quite a lot of steps that have been taken on these types of ordinance from a standpoint of audiology to bring them up to speed. The ordinance currently is not consistent with the county ordinance. It's just a standard that somebody came up with years ago, and there are a lot of things now when you start talking about noise meters, such as, are you having bass tones? Our ordinance doesn't confront that. So I'm almost of the opinion that, well, what do you do? Bring it up, bring the ordinance up to speed with regard to the decibel provisions to match the county, or do you just eliminate that stuff? Because it's, as I think Councilmember Glass has indicated, there's a lot of considerations when you start dealing with noise meters issues.
I think if you read lines 235 through 237, it really adds a level of confusion. What is 20 micronewtons per square meter?
Yeah,
It's a very small force, but yeah.
yeah.
Metric system. uses
Yeah,
metric system.
exactly.
All right, so Paul, you're going to work with Brett, hopefully next month.
Hopefully.
I would ask it also to get in touch with chief and staff to.
Correct.
To understand how the implementation of the ordinance would be used. So, yeah, so.
On this one, Chief's input's going to be very germane to what's going on based on what he feels is workable and has worked in the past.
Absolutely. I think I already understand, Chief. I think we're on the same page, and his officers are reasonable, and they have discretion to make a reasonable
Right.
decision of what is a violation.
All right, public comment. We're going to go in the order that I got these cards.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
please remind the audience to be considerate.
Yes. 3 minutes per person, name and address, and we want, please be considerate of everybody. Talk to us, don't talk to anybody else. We're not talking to people in the audience. And there was something else I was thinking. Oh, actually, I don't remember. All right. Carla Rodiger. I always mess that up for you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Carla Rodiger, 601 North Miramar, Indialantic, Florida. Thank you for listening to a concerned resident of Indialantic. First, I am a year-round resident of the town, unlike the majority who signed the opposed petition. Second, I am only asking the Blue to follow town ordinances and to be a good neighbor. Never did I pursue this council to have it closed. Just be a respectful neighbor, play low music, slow music, soft music, and less bass. Third, according to the Indialantic Comprehensive Plan, goal number 1 is to maintain low-density residential character with all the uses of land, to meet the needs of the residents. Again, to meet the needs of the residents. Page 6, Objective 2, to implement a strong code enforcement program. Page 18, Objective 5, do not cause a deterioration of the small community and the atmosphere of the town. Page 26, Objective 2, continue to maintain a strict code enforcement. So I'm asking you to please adopt the plainly audible standard and set the enforcement distance to 200 feet from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 100 feet from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the residential, professional, and tourist zones. Do not overpower the residents. We shouldn't have to call the police to have peace and tranquility for amplified music during the day. So again, please pass and adopt the plainly audible standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Bernstein.
601 North Miramar Avenue. My name is Cynthia Bernstein. There's been a lot of misinformation that's been going around on Nextdoor, and I want to address those. One is that those in favor of a noise ordinance are part-time, non-voting residents. I happen to be a full-time voting resident of Indialantic since 2015. This is my home. Second is that the aim of residents and of the town council is to shut down the hotel and the bar. My aim, and the aim of many on Nextdoor, is not to shut down the business, only to lower the volume of the music. Some examples that I read on Nextdoor from one resident says, let's not take this Indialantic joy away, just turn the music down a little. Another wrote, I really have no problem with the BB as long as the music and noise is kept to reasonable levels and at reasonable times. And one more, if the issue is about noise, why is turning down the music a little bit apparently not an option the bar's willing to do? Wouldn't that make everybody happy? A third piece of misinformation is that passing the ordinance as written would eliminate special events on Nextdoor. The mayor corrected this in one of his remarks on Nextdoor, and there are numerous exceptions that are, at least in the current version, included. A fourth misconception is that the noise generated from BB is comparable to children playing or a pool party. The problem is that the music from the bar occurs for several hours almost every day. This isn't comparable to a special occasion. Another misconception is that the music isn't really that loud. One employee wrote, we play music throughout the day and night, but not so loud that you can't talk to each other. This just isn't true. I live over 200 feet away, and the music has been so loud at times that I could not have a normal conversation with just one friend on my own balcony. There is currently nothing on the books that limits noise during daytime hours in Indialantic. The county does include restrictions on daytime noise, and I encourage the town to do so as well. Finally, there's the misconception that the business is locally owned. Although the ownership of Blue Bar may have been represented by some on social media, I personally don't think this is central to the issue at all. Whether the owner is local or not, the hotel, restaurant, and bar are clearly popular among residents and visitors. My own relatives have stayed at the hotel. I would like to see a compromise that would allow the business to thrive while keeping the noise at a lower level. So there have been other issues that have been raised about Blue Bar and next door, about parking, traffic, trash collection, disturbance of the dunes, sea turtles. But this is not what it's about. Tonight, it's just about the noise ordinance, and I encourage the town council to accept the plainly audible standard and to reduce the distance to 200 feet during the day.
Thank you. Jim Seaton.
Jim Seaton, 601 North Miramar. If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of the can being kicked down the road on this noise ordinance. I think you're being naive to think that Paul and Brett are going to rewrite this in a significantly improved version from the time and effort that the county has put in. You know, God bless you if you can do it, but I don't think it's going to be all that easy. So I think using the county, what they've got as the basis, and as you know, I've also recommended that the county ordinance has a section on use of the noise meter that also has a daytime and a nighttime level. And, you know, we don't have that. Right now during the day, if you read the ordinance, you're allowed to make as much noise as you want, as long as it's not amplified and as long as it's amplified and being broadcast onto the street. Now, Chief Connor and his people are basically using the plainly audible because they hear a lot of noise, they go try to take care of it. But it's not in the ordinances. And that's why this plainly audible thing, I think, is important. And it's not just important to my neighborhood. It's important to all the neighborhoods out there, because there really is not much that can be done. I mean, the chief can come talk to people, but to quiet down. But if you read the ordinance, there's really not much that can be done during the day. At night, they've got to use the meter. So that's why this plainly audible thing, I think, is so important. You know, we all hear this deep bass beat sometimes from the neighbor or from cars and stuff. Well, a noise meter doesn't pick that up very good, but boy, from a plainly audible standpoint, you know it's there and you know it'll be bothering you. So, you know, I was going to talk more about the fact that we need the 200 feet instead of the 300 feet, because you start looking at our neighborhoods, the size of the lots and stuff are only on average 100, and now we're talking at 300 feet. This is neighbors that are 4 houses down that are making a noise. If it bothers you at that distance, think of your neighbors that are even closer. But without a tighter standard, you know, the police have limited authority really to do much about that. So I just want to end by saying that, you know, we need this plainly audible. I'd like to see it in parallel with a good daytime, nighttime rule using the meter. So that's always there as a backup. But we need the plainly audible, and we need something less than 300 feet during the day for my neighborhood and for all your neighborhoods too. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Urali. Okay. Mr. Emery Urali, you want to speak?
Emery Urali, 501 North Miramar. You know, after listening to this for hours and hours, I got one thing to say. Facts don't lie, people lie, and this is an exaggeration. We don't have a noise problem whatsoever, and I'm done. And the more aggravation I keep getting here, I'm going to hold the city responsible for this, because it's my time, who runs a beautiful establishment and took out all the druggies off the street, cleaned that place up, and also, not to mention, I've been harassed there. And if you'd like me to get into the harassment, Mr. Lawrence Strand, I will. Because the day after that I left that hearing regarding you wanted to question Cliff, you came to my business 3:30 in the afternoon with my manager present. And unfortunately, she's not here right now. Her mother has cancer, and she's in the hospital. And she would have been here as my witness. For some odd reason, I don't know why you came to me, but the first thing you said, do I have any questions? I looked at you very strange, just like I'm looking at you right now in the eye. I said, what do you mean? What questions would I have? And he said to me, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. I have video and camera recording all over my place. So if you want to contest this, I'll publish it, okay? And have a witness. And you said this, I'm on your side. I'm not on his side, and you pointed at the condo. I just need your help.
No.
I said, why
So-
would you?
That's
Can
not-
I
hold
talk? Am I not allowed to talk?
Hold on, hold on.
It's not true.
Hold on.
Lauren,
Am I not allowed
hold
to
on.
talk? Am I
We're
not
talking,
allowed to talk and tell the truth?
we're talking about the
That's
noise,
case. I'm gonna sit
Mr.
down.
Urali, we're talking about
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
noise
sit down
ordinance.
and not tell the truth. How about that? I raise my right arm, telling,
Right.
swear to God, I'm telling the truth.
I'm not disputing
Okay?
that, but we're talking about
So
the
I
noise
think you
ordinance.
guys should know what happened to me.
We're talking about the noise ordinance right now.
Yes, we are talking about it. And this is about the noise ordinance.
It is
And
not
this is about transparency, that you wanted transparency.
This is not about the noise ordinance.
This is all about the whole ordinance, about
It's about
everything.
your dispute with a council member,
This is
so-
all related to
all
the
right.
noise ordinance and everything. So if I could speak here, so,
On the noise
Mr. Strand
No,
told me he's on
we're
my
done.
side.
Mr. Urali, we're talking about the
So
noise ordinance.
I'm not allowed to speak, correct?
You're allowed to speak about the
So
noise ordinance.
my rights to speak on the record are not allowed, is
You're
that correct?
allowed to speak about the noise ordinance.
Okay, this is all about the noise ordinance and
You're
all the
addressing
related.
Mr. Strand
this
and
is
your
about
dispute
the-
with Mr.
This is
Strand,
about
that's it.
the entire ordinance and about everything.
It's okay.
Okay?
Please.
Yeah, it's okay. So you don't, so if I'm allowed to speak, I have the freedom to speak here. This is all related to how the noise ordinance and everything started. And that's why you guys should hear it. If you don't want to hear it, I'll sit down and I'll walk away. You know, and I'll just lease my place out to a drug rehab clinic and you guys can deal with the problems. So just let me know if I should sit down or should I tell the truth. It's your choice. You're the mayor.
You got a minute.
You're the boss.
Go for
Okay.
another minute.
I don't want to be on a 3-second here. I've been interrupted.
We interrupted, so you get
I've been
another minute.
interrupted a million times here, so
You get another
my
minute.
train of thought is lost here too. But I remember verbatimly what I'm telling you. He came in at 3:30 in the afternoon, asked me, do I have any questions? I looked at him the same way I'm looking at him. Questions about what? Looked at me, and he said, he's on my side. He's not on this guy's side. And I said, well, this is kind of unusual. I've seen all the emails back and forth, and I think you are my adversary. He said, why are you getting upset? He goes, I'm on your side. I'm here for one reason, transparency. And I asked Cliff the question. That's why I was there. And I want transparency is what he said. And I need you, okay, to help me with Cliff. And I said, help you with Cliff for what? What did Cliff do wrong? He had nothing, zero wrong. I'm like, what is even going on here? That's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm a business owner. I can't believe this is happening to me. After he mentioned, okay, about Cliff, he said he wanted transparency. So I said to him, well, tell me this. I had 150 people here the last night. Why did you adjourn your question to Cliff? I can't tell. 2 people asked me not to. He won't tell me who the 2 people were. And he said to me, just as if you asked me not to tell, I wouldn't tell who you, the same question. I wouldn't tell on you. I said, that doesn't make any sense. This is not transparency whatsoever. And you know, at that point, I feel this is harassment. So something needs to be done here because this is not transparency. And there is no problem. Like I said, facts don't lie. He just gave you facts, the police chief. People lie. And we need to stop the lying.
Lynn Urali.
Lynn Raleigh, 501 North Miramar. I've been listening to this for over a year now. A lot of frustration. My husband's very upset. I believe we came to this town with very good intentions. Not gonna get into it. We cleaned up what was, when we first got there, a place that not only would I not stay, but I was afraid to walk the property. And I think the residents, maybe even respected council, forget what we walked into and what we did for this town so far, and especially across the street. And at some point, somebody mentioned that this ordinance wasn't about the 2 parties. But listening to this, it's clearly about the 2 parties. And that's what keeps coming up. And it's just this ordinance now, but it's been permits, it's been zoning, it's jumped through this hoop, it's jumped through another hoop. And he continues to do so. He continues to jump through these hoops. And Mr. Seaton, which I wasn't supposed to say his name, but the fact of the matter is, he wants the business gone. I have one of the emails here.
Does it pertain to the noise ordinance?
I don't know, does it pertain to the noise ordinance that the email does say that instead of anything else happening, they just want our building to be, our hotel and restaurant to be bulldozed to the ground?
We received the same email.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, back to the noise ordinance. I apologize, I'm not
That's
a
okay.
good public speaker.
That's all right.
So it is about the two parties. As far as the noise ordinance, we are in the T-tourism, and I think we also seem to forget that Indialantic 1 are also in T-tourism. And they have some benefits from being in the T-tourism, which most condos don't afford, which is the way they are allowed to rent out their condos. And I understand that the young lady that was here before said that it doesn't matter if you're a non-resident or not, which I disagree. I think it does matter. And I think that the 3,000 residents in Indialantic that don't know about this noise ordinance and don't realize that, you know, they're going to be, their neighbor's going to call the police when they have their kid's birthday party, I think that they all need to be notified about this and need to know what's going on. I think that by the council jumping through these hoops to someone who has repeatedly undermined the city and the town and its officials and its employees, would just give him more wind beneath his wings to continue to persecute us and other businesses and or residents of the town. And the other thing that I have done a little bit of research on, and
Can you
as
wrap it
far-
up quickly?
Well, I'll try, yeah. I don't understand why you want to mirror Brevard's noise ordinance, because Brevard's noise ordinance is more for a rural area. Indialantic is not a rural area, it is a town. I think there should be some research done about other towns that are similar to Indialantic, and that would be the noise ordinance. Furthermore, I think that
I have a question. What are your hours of operation? Sunday through Thursday, you close down the bar at 9 p.m., is that correct?
it's a restaurant and it closes at 9.
Sorry, restaurant, excuse me. And then Friday and Saturday is at 10 o'clock at night?
10 o'clock at the absolute latest.
And then which nights of the week do you have live music typically? I know-
So they usually have, I believe, I'm not always here.
Fair enough.
Friday, and it's not every weekend, Friday and Saturday, but it's not every single night. It's just depending.
And then when do those live acts perform?
I
I generally in
believe
the evening or in
they're
the
done by
afternoon or
9. Even on the weekends, I think they're done by 9 before the bar closes. They usually end like 8:39. But it's not like a hard rock and roll or loud music.
No, I just want to understand what the hours of operation are typically.
The hours, and listen, we're a very small property, and we also, not only do we respect our neighbors, but we respect the fact that we have a hotel attached, and our guests need to sleep, and our guests have children, and they're there to relax. And never once have we had a noise complaint from a guest in the property, which has 18 rooms and are right there on property.
Yeah, I understand.
Right, okay. Mike Borshevitz.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you, sir. Mike Borshevitz, 443 10th Avenue. I respect every one of you sitting there. This is not an easy issue to deal with. Unfortunately, I think even trying to target 200 feet, 300 feet, any of those specifics is going to be very challenging. My home abuts the neighbor behind me. Their pool is about 30 feet away from my pool. So when kids are screaming for hours a day, that can be very disturbing. Are we going to eliminate that? I think, you know, what we have with the police currently functions. Somebody can come and say, can you please keep it down? You're disturbing the neighbor. You can't force people to be good neighbors. If somebody is going to be egocentric and narcissistic and just do what they want to do, you're not going to change that with an ordinance. But the police presence, the repeated police presence, can begin to discourage that behavior. And just trying to adopt the county code is not necessarily going to help anything. Shortly after my tenure on the council, this town adopted the leash law from the county. A couple months later, came and tried to impose it upon me to say that my dog had to be on a leash even when on his own property. My dog slept at the foot of my bed. I didn't have him on a leash. He sits next to me when I read a book or watch TV. I didn't have him on a leash. So I challenged it. I refused to pay the fine. I challenged it, and Judge Garagoslo struck it down as being unconstitutional. The county also had a code for no nudity in the county. Despite that code, I still, in the privacy of my bathroom, disrobe for personal hygiene reasons. I certainly expect and hope that others do so, right? So I think sometimes we just have a little bit of government overreach here, right? Being reasonable means different things to different people. I may not like the sound of the ice cream truck running around, but others do. I may or may not like the fire truck running around for Christmas. That's certainly, you can hear that for blocks on end. We just had the 4th of July celebration. Are we going to send the police running around, arresting everybody, shooting off bottle rockets? That's worse, because I've got stuff dropping into my property, right? But reasonable people say, man, it's the 4th of July, just cut them some slack, right? So I think we're trying to beat a horse that's been beaten a few times already. The current standard, although not everybody always is respectful, works. It's worked for a long time. And if there's a repeat offender, then maybe our fine police chief can have a conversation with them and resolve it.
Thank you.
We're going to hit your street twice with Santa.
Yeah. Dave Berkman.
Just to be clear, the current language in the code doesn't match our current operation. That was the point I was trying to make earlier.
To modify that, fine.
Yeah.
But
They match.
It's public comment. Dave Berkman, 225 8th. First, you guys are beyond disingenuous with yourself. For you to sit there and post on media and talk tonight that this isn't about blue, I'm going to rephrase my language, that's garbage. Just listen to you guys had your conversations. Lauren's diatribe talked about, blue. Brett, you made sense tonight, thank you. And Sue did. So the two people I heard up here tonight to make sense is Stu and Brett, right? The rest of these things, come on. No disrespect to you guys, but they're talking about the frequencies. So I can't hear both. You're not going to hear 20,000 hertz. You're not going to hear 13,000 hertz. I can hear 12,000. So what's reasonable for your officer? When you go there, you're not going to hear the same sound that Scott's going to hear, even though he's old too. So that's a hard thing. And then the meters, you got a floor, and then you have a peak, you're talking an RMS, and then you got an average that goes across that. Don't make this so hard. Look at behind you. It's incorporated in 1952. For 72 years, this hasn't come up here. In my 17 years, it came up once when we changed, I believe we changed from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. when you could do lawn mowing on weekends or something like that. So there isn't a huge problem right now. You guys are addressing a specific problem with blue and the residents, and to govern 3,000 people and to make a change that you talk about insanity in government. You're going to be changing a code and spending thousands. God knows how much more money we're going to spend now. I love you, Paul, but $400 an hour for how many more hours to keep doing this is, and you're going to come back and you're going to have the same conversation again next time. So what is reasonable? I think it comes back to what Brett talked. What's reasonable? So is there modifications that need to be made? Maybe, but you guys are so far out in the field here. You have the chief of police who's telling you change nothing. Is that correct? He's telling you there's not a problem. The spreadsheet we put up showed 2 problems, I believe, last year. One was on New Year's Eve when they had a problem. Really? So there may be problems. Maybe they hear stuff. I don't know. I like the folks there. We did stuff with the dog park and all. And no disrespect to you guys, but there's got to be a better solution than governing 3,000 people with something that is ridiculous, right? And maybe Brett helps figure that out, sitting with Paul, but making these massive changes and then being consistent with Melbourne and Brevard County, why have a town, right? That is very, very different. So I understand there's legal implications. If you're going to have, the county's going to have something on one street over a different rule, then there's going to be a legal fight that maybe Emery and folks are going to bring forward, but think about what you're doing. You're not going to pass this tonight, obviously, but there might be minor changes to be made, but you don't have a problem. You're governing and you're finding a solution to a problem that doesn't exist in a big scale. It exists at one problem, which is not just sound. You have the problem with the bathroom. They're going back and appealing. I don't even understand how a resident appeals a decision on zoning planning. It doesn't affect them, but you guys let that happen. I mean, it's not about just sound. Right, you guys are fighting this battle over a individual problem. Find another solution. I know it's not easy, but having council members go to the business and harass them, that's not a solution either. I mean, it's just craziness on my part, but think about it. Listen to Brett. It made sense tonight. Brett, thank you.
Thank you. Carrie.
Clarify the record, Lauren didn't harass anybody, despite what Dave, likes to ramble on next door. You misrepresent things, don't appreciate it. It's unproductive for our town when we're trying to resolve legitimate issues. And Paul doesn't bill $400 an hour for the town, so come on, Dave, you're better than that.
Carrie.
No, but he did actually harass everybody. He did come over.
Okay. Carrie.
Carrie Foy, 235 Wayne Avenue. I have much less to say tonight, thanks to, I've listened intently. I do mirror some of former Mayor Berkman's remarks. I was quite surprised when Councilman Wright said this was a coincidence that this came up. I was actually told by two people sitting up here in a private conversation that this ordinance was coming about because of Blue Beach. So I was quite surprised to hear you say that it was a
I was never
coincidence.
told it was for it, so that's my knowledge base.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak what I think. So I applaud the fact that this needs to go back to the drawing board. I have raised children under the guise of, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We are a boutique little town that lives harmoniously with our neighbors. And I read public record. I read every single one of those letters because I wanted to be knowledgeable before I came up and spoke tonight. What I read was there was a paragraph that was clear in every single letter that came from the people wanting the new noise ordinance and wanting to go 200 feet to 100 feet. It was almost verbatim, that paragraph. So that's a plan. And I read one of those letters that Mrs. Girali spoke about that said, we want this bulldozed to the ground and a condo built in its place. That's a shot across the bow to private businesses in this town. And I will fight tooth and nail to protect our small businesses in our town along with our residents. So please be careful how we proceed with this. I applaud Councilman Miller's common sense tonight, as well as Chief Connor's. And I don't think anything needs to be changed. I truly don't. But if we're going to do it, I think we should do it thoughtfully and what's in the best interest of every resident in this town, along with the businesses. And let's govern for the whole town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Hynonen, maybe?
Kelly Hyvonen.
Oh, okay.
355 Spoonbill Lane. I'm a local planning consultant with experience in writing, interpreting, and educating the public on codes. And so this is kind of all in my wheelhouse, what you all are dealing with tonight. And I'd like to share some of my thoughts on both your current and your proposed noise ordinances. During a lot of the discussion that was brought up, the current noise ordinance, which handles the decibel meter or the sound meter, that's a great tool because it's objective. It's not subjective, it's not open to interpretation, and it gives you numbers, and there's people that are trained to use that. I think a really good resource with your current code you have today would be the City of Melbourne. I worked for Melbourne for 9 years. Their code enforcement actually goes out and does their sound meters, so they are trained and they have meters. And I know that they would be happy, both their law enforcement and their code enforcement, to talk about the pros and cons of that if that's something that the town wanted to adopt. The current code today is interesting because it is lacking several things. I don't think it was intended to not have a noise ordinance during the day, but looking logically through the code, putting my lawyer hat on, you're right, you look at it, and there are no decibel levels for the daytime, only the nighttime. A code like Melbourne's, what they're doing is they're looking at A-weighted and C-weighted and decibels and all sorts of different octave ranges that are measured by that sound meter. And each of their different districts has a daytime and an evening time. They also have an entertainment district for the small section of downtown to allow the decibels to go higher. So the city is actually, you're set up in a way where you can alter what you have today to make it more harmonious and working with what you have. I like the idea of the plainly audible for something like a warning. I mean, a warning doesn't mean anything, but most people, I would assume, they get a warning, they cut it out, and that's it. So for something like plainly audible or them just asking, warning, fine. But if you're going to go to the level of citing someone, it's helpful to have those numbers and have a sound meter. So I would definitely recommend Melbourne. I'm happy to make connections. They have a great ordinance as well that's pretty robust. So measuring with a meter is objective and not open to interpretation or opinions. It's fair and reasonable. So amending the noise ordinance you have today would be a good first step before you tack something else onto it that might not make sense. So for the proposed ordinance you're looking at, it further confuses it. I know that the deputy mayor was referencing some items in the 200s where it was talking about sound level. Please note that this section of the ordinance is attached onto the existing sound noise ordinance, and these definitions don't apply to the beginning. Can I just have another minute I just have some ideas. So this whole section you're looking at here has nothing to do with your existing noise ordinance. They stand alone and separate, which is confusing because there's different definitions for different things, just something to look at. So I know that this ordinance is desired to allow for, as it says in the whereas, is easy administration and simplified procedures, but it's at the cost of objective measures and transparency. So again, what you're left with is some ambiguous things. Mr. Miller went through a lot of, I don't need to address any of those, but I agree, the definitions are just so heavy and they don't make any sense. So what will happen if this code is passed tonight? I know you're probably not going to pass it, but you will have local establishments that are plainly audible from 300 feet or 150 feet if this is passed. So that depends on wind, temperature, humidity, and ambient noise. So we really ask that you look at this, and if you need assistance or needs me to tie you to other communities that have the same issues and have found other ways to solve that, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
John, I think that's you.
I'm the project manager at 405 North Miramar, building the condos, so I'm probably one of the most hated people here because of the noise that we make.
Okay, so we'll need your name and address.
I hear the music.
So, John, real quick, your name and address for the record.
Jonathan Mutchler. Jonathan Mutchler.
How do you spell that?
Mutschler.
Okay, thank you. And your address? You can give a business address if you want.
405 North Miramar.
Okay.
I'm right next door to BB.
Okay.
So I, like I said, I make a lot of noise. And I'm responsible for more disturbances than anyone else, I'm sure. On behalf of Emory, he's been very patient and amicable at every turn, even when I mess up and let him down. It's a very nice person to work with. And listening to this, and maybe I missed something, but focusing on plainly audible doesn't seem like the right direction to me. From my point of view, the words plainly audible imply clarity of all sounds, not just some at certain frequencies. I think the focus should be on reasonable person with reasonable understanding. So I don't know how many people are complaining about this thing, but if I have 500 people over here and 2 people are complaining about it, doesn't that disqualify them for being reasonable? If they're the only 2? I don't know how many, I don't know. So back to plainly audible. Does that mean I could just hear the sounds? Or do I have to be able to identify what song it is? Does that make it plainly audible? I think the definition needs to be very clear on that. And is that something that a person could use a hearing aid to make their case? You know, I've amplified the sound so that I can make the complaint that is plainly audible. I can hear the words they were playing, whatever, Blondie, I don't know. One of my property buyers rents a place in the building that's just north of BB. And he comes over every day, checking on, when are we done? When are we done? When are you gonna deliver? And I asked him, has he ever heard or been disturbed by anything over at Music Wise? And his answer was no, not at all. He didn't even know that they had music. So again, on my balconies that face 15 feet away from where the performers are, I can hear the music. But when I shut the door, I don't. So that's it.
Thank you. All right. So I guess we're going to leave it. That's the end of public comment. Anybody else, public comment on that? Yeah, I'll put my thing in. Oh, I didn't get it. Sorry.
Tim Musser, 505, Surf Rider. Once again, I live next door to Emory. I don't have a noise problem with them. I think this is looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Might have been a problem a few months ago. Emory's turning the noise down. The fireworks are brought up about, the noise with the fireworks going on. Nothing gets done about that. The motorcycles with the 1,500 watt sound systems going by, making noise like that. Emory's running a business. Businesses make noise. People using pressure washers make noise. People pounding nails make noise. People mowing grass make noise. What's the difference? I'm going to leave these up here for anybody that needs them. Feel free to use them.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Lori Cockrell, 601 North Miramar. Sorry, thanks. So, gentleman made a good point on what's plainly audible, and some people, what can you hear, what can't you hear? This is my cochlear implant, so I have a hearing deficit, and I can't hear a lot, but I can hear from our balcony the noises from Blue Beach, and I know this isn't supposed to be about, but it is. We've made that clear. And we can shut our balcony, but one of the reasons we bought our retirement family vacation home was so we can sit out on our balcony in the evenings and enjoy it. So yes, there are pressure washers, there's construction, there are all the things, but it happens and then it shuts off. There's this and then it shuts off. There's fireworks, there's the ice cream truck, there are things. But when there is loud music for a long, prolonged time, that is, I'm sorry, it's louder than 9 o'clock at night. It doesn't shut off at 9. It goes until 11, on the weekends, longer than 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, so my father is considering buying a condo in our building, and he's waiting to see what happens with the noise ordinance. He's looking at 303 on our same thing, and he's waiting to see what happens here. And so it's affecting property values. It's affecting our properties. So when we bought back in 2020, we didn't have this issue, and now it is one. We want this as a quiet, beautiful residential place, and if we're abiding by residential rental laws, we would like it to remain a residential area. We could have bought anywhere. We didn't buy in Cocoa, we didn't buy in Indian Harbor, we bought in Indialantic because of its community-like atmosphere, and we want it to stay that way. And we don't want Blue Beach to shut down. We think it's beautiful what it's done, but we just want it to be a little quieter in the evenings. That's it. And so we just want it to be respectful of us, and we'll be respectful of it. We love that it's cleaned up and done what it's done, but we just want it to be, we just want to be neighborly. That's all. So, thank you.
Thank you. James.
James Edmonds, 333 8th Avenue, Indialantic, Florida.
Listening to everything tonight and what's kind of gone down, it's between two parties, clearly. I myself specialize as a luxury real estate specialist. I moved here about 15 years ago and reside here full-time, and I feel that BB's has, if anything, boosted the property values, bringing in a commercial amenity that gives jobs to local kids. So it kind of seems like it is between two parties, and I feel that, like the chief said, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I won't waste your time, but I'm definitely against it.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Maria.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Maria Fanto, 255 Paradise. Thanks to the chief and the police officers. I encounter this noise ordinance a lot and how it's used for Brevard County and what I do every day. I run a property down south, and the county rules don't work. The sheriffs will tell you it's a waste of time. You look up how many police reports are done and calls. It doesn't work. So if you are going to do something, which I strongly think it is not worth your time, I moved here, I reside here. There's jobs. If you go to the Tourism Development Council or the EDC and you see how much money Brevard County is getting from sales tax, from tourism tax, what's keeping the beaches clean, what's helping with lifeguards, it is all from sales tax and that bed tax that goes from that resort and many resorts like it. Element was just built, it's opening up. That is more money to this area, and you truly have to understand what this problem is going to cause on a greater effect. So I hope you really consider it. Brett, you seem very smart and very logical and reasonable, and so do you, so thank you for what you do, because I really appreciate that you're so common sense focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue?
Just a comment, sales tax does not work the way most people think. Sales tax in the state of Florida is all lumped together in one big pot. And then 1/2 of 1 cent is divvied up between the municipalities, and 411 municipalities, and the 67 counties based on population. So $1 collected in Miami is no different than $1 collected in Indialantic.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. All right. So, in closing on that, Brett and Paul, we're all looking at you. All right, moving on.
Well, we made a motion, we have to.
Oh, so what's the motion?
Yeah, so I made the motion to approve, Lauren seconded it, so we would need to
Make a motion to table it.
make a motion to table, is that correct, Paul? Just make sure that I'm keeping it straight and narrow.
Or continue.
Continues probably the better one with the direction, and I'll elaborate a little bit just for the record. So I'll make a motion to table. Continue 2024-07 to be updated by Councilman Miller and Mr. Googleman with the input from staff, as well as considerations for Brevard County, City of Melbourne, or other inputs that might be worthwhile to bring the ordinance into the 20th century, what are we, 2021? 21st century, with regards to how it specifies and it will be administered by the Indialantic Police Department.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of continuing per Doug's suggestion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, continuing next month. All right, moving on. Ordinances, public hearing, ordinance 2024-06. Yep, everybody's free to go if they don't want to listen to signs. Yeah, you guys can go.
Ordinance number 2024-06, an ordinance of the Town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, relating to land development regulation and signage, making findings, amending section 113-301, Town Code of Ordinances, relating to definitions, amending section 113-303, Town Code of Ordinances, relating to prohibited signs, providing additional regulations as to type of signage prohibited within the town, prohibiting the erection and maintenance of off-premises commercial signage, amending section 113-305, Town Code of Ordinances relating to the type, sign, and location and duration of erection of signage permitted within each of the town zoning districts, amending Section 113-306 Town Code of Ordinances relating to signage that is nonconforming to the sign code regulations, revising standards, providing for removal of signage upon discontinuance as opposed to abandonment, creating Section 113-307 Town Code of Ordinances, setting forth special regulations and standards regarding changeable copy signs, electronic non-changeable copy signs, and government signs, providing for severability and interpretation, and providing for an effective date.
Mike, if I read the notes from last month, because I was not here, this is a formality based on state law?
Yeah, the floodplain management stuff, this is required.
Okay, is there a motion?
No.
No, this is
Oh, wait.
sign code.
No,
Sign code, no, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Different one,
that
sorry.
was the other one? Okay,
Yeah, it's a different
To
one.
clean up some language, it covers signage.
okay,
There was signage related to land development, which is.
Sorry, yeah.
okay.
And Paul, I'm correct in understanding we'll address temporary signs at a future date?
Yes, this is the first of a series of ordinances that'll be revising the sign code.
Thank you.
To be consistent with common sense and what the
Well,
character needs to be.
not necessarily common
All right,
sense.
I-
Edicts of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Fair enough.
Is there a motion?
I'm just trying to make a point to the earlier discussion about the fact that we're not doing a sign ordinance update because of a particular issue that we're trying to address with a single entity, contrary to popular opinion.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 2024-06 on second reading.
I second.
Any need for discussion?
Any updates, Paul?
No.
The last time?
Nope.
Okay, just want a clarification on that, confirmation on that, excuse me.
Public comment from the three of you. All right. All those in favor of approving ordinance 2024-06 relating to the land development regulation signage, say aye.
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 All opposed? 4-0.
Wow.
Where's Molly? Is she?
She's watching in the room.
She's there, she's just not in chamber.
Yeah.
All right. Ordinance 2024-08, second final reading, public hearing relating to the land development code.
Ordinance number 2024-08, an ordinance of the town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, relating to the land development code, amending provisions relating to floodplain management, making findings, repealing section 103-37, Town Code of Ordinances relating to local amendments to the building code, creating section 107-7, Town Code of Ordinances, providing for definitions, amending sections 107-51, Town Code of Ordinances relating to study, supporting the basis for establishment of flood hazard areas, revising section 107-115 relating to structures exempt from the state building code, altering references from divisions within chapter 107 to the entire chapter, revising references to code sections, and with regard to the state building code, revising section 107-371 relating to foundations of manufactured homes, providing severability and interpretation clause, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2024-08.
I second.
Discussion?
Same question as last time. Any changes or updates since first reading, Paul?
No.
Thank you.
Public comment? Nothing. All right. All those in favor, you didn't raise your hand, did you? Oh, okay. All those in favor of ordinance 2024-08 relating to land development code, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, moving on. Ordinance 2024-09, second final reading, public hearing relating to the Town of Indialantic Comprehensive Plan.
Ordinance number 2024-09, an ordinance of the town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, relating to Town of Indialantic Comprehensive Plan, making findings, adopting policy 7.2 of the comprehensive plan, a capital improvement schedule, amending section 113-23, Town of Indialantic Code of Ordinances, relating to the adoption of the capital improvement schedule, providing a severability and interpretation clause, and providing for an effective date.
Motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 2409 based on the second reading.
There's a second?
I'll second.
And if I could, just to make sure that we have a fill in the blank on page 6, line 235, the reference should be amended, and that we would insert today's date for ordinance 2024-009.
Why is, I see that in the minutes. Why is that important, Paul, here, that the specific date appear?
Because what we do in section 101-23 is we cite the date of adoption and the ordinance number. And it's a list of each and every ordinance that has amended your comprehensive plan. So it's like an easy research section for people that want to reference amendments to the comprehensive plan.
I'll amend my motion to include the amended date to be added in section 101-23.
And I will amend my second to concur.
Discussion? Public comment? All those in favor of approving ordinance 2024-09, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Unfinished business? Nothing. Sweet.
It would be more exciting than the noise ordinance. It's gonna be money in our pocket, but.
New business, proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 millage rate of
Interesting option.
5.9999 and budget hearing dates. So, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're doing is setting what we can go to. This is not what we will go to. So if we select this, we can't go higher during budget talks, but we can go lower.
Correct. So based upon what we came up after we got the budgets from all the department heads, went through and our income and stuff like that, and money we're moving forward, and with a raise of cost, we're recommending a 5.9999. Last year, we were at 5.9810. The rollback rate, we can only go 10% over the rollback rate. The max we could go is 6.1520. So we're not recommending a max, but just with the cost of inflation, everything else, insurance has gone up again, of course. We saw 10% in police for health insurance, and then up to 9% for workers' comp and everything else.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to set the proposed millage rate at 5.9999.
Is there a second? Oh, go ahead.
You got to read it exactly.
Sorry.
And acknowledge the separate and voted debt millage rate of 1.0 mils for previously approved stormwater bond.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, discussion?
I have one comment. When you actually look at this, it's about $1.20 per 100,000 of taxable value on a property.
Yeah.
Say it again, Stu?
It's approximately $1.20 per 100,000 of taxable value. So it's really a pretty nominal amount.
A $1 million property is like $19 if you have $1 million assessment.
A $19 change from last year's roll.
That'd be, yeah, without the change, but based on the same assessment.
Yeah, which, good luck with that.
And it's required by the
Yeah.
truth and millet, whatever the trim notice says.
Doug, comment? Discussion?
I haven't had a chance to really talk with you, Mike, and you're asked any questions about the budget. Are we confident then that the budgets that we've got for each of the departments and with the known needs and the planned projects that we have, this is adequate, but not, I mean, obviously we set the cap here so that we're confident that we have adequate funding for the
Yes.
fiscal year 25.
Yes, we looked at everything. The Public Works was asking for, they're always short-staffed, for an additional part-timer. We were able to work that in. And with the police department, replace the extra vehicle besides one. So we move forward from reserves to that. We feel comfortable with that budget. All our projects, stormwater projects, paving projects we have for next year.
Lauren?
Yeah, I just want to keep clarifying to make sure I understand. You're saying insurance is the major driver of this increase, or are there truly others that are in what I'd call driving the majority of the cost?
No, insurance is just part of it, it's not the major driver.
Okay, what are the major drivers of the ask for the increase?
Give me 1 second here. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get what for, though. I get that it's not
Yeah.
necessarily a lot, Stu, but folks ought to know for why. Why not keep it the same then? So we're trying to say this is
Yeah.
the drivers
Said-
suggesting.
I can tell you right now, like I said, but just between the insurance increases, that's one of the things.
Yeah?
We have money we have to come up to next year for 800 megahertz, it's a one-time fee for the county, for the police and fire.
Is that a procurement or a licensing or a software?
It's just a fee, we have to pay a backbone fee.
Okay.
They're going P23 compliant. The police department's getting 2 vehicles. One of them we have been saving for, the other one wasn't in the reserves, so that's helped pay for it. The fire department's replacing a generator. The new fire truck, of course, we've had that money in savings. We're in street improvements, we're including next year for repaving South Shannon, South Palm, and Orlando Boulevard, 100 and 500 block. Street drainage in Miami Avenue, 300 block, Watson, 500 block, Genesee, 400 block, and Oakland, 400 block. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Repair, and we've had this money in our reserves, repair of the pier down at Riverside Park and adding a kayak launch. Orlando Park, replace the fire truck down there with a piece of equipment. It's worn out, possibly adding a pickleball and resurfacing the basketball courts. Then also, that meeting will probably carry on, and hopefully, after our next discussion. And then, of course, the salary's going up too.
Where'd you say the kayak launch was?
Where, pardon?
Okay.
Riverview,
Riverside behind the St. First Methodist.
where the pier is, we're gonna add one,
Right.
like a floating dock.
Down at the pier, Riverside?
No, I know what you're talking about. This came up before. Sorry, this is a whole different topic. I'll talk to you about.
So these are, you mentioned reserves a little bit. These are mostly things not coming from reserves, but require the additional revenue through tax dollars.
Yeah, not everything's coming from reserves. We have, some paving projects we've saved for, but other things we haven't. Building repairs, things like that. The costs have gone up for everything.
Right, so what we've saved for, you're not mentioning, right? That's already built in. The items you said, many of them are taking both reserves and part of the tax increase to
Right.
fulfill.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Brett?
To my understanding, is it fair statement?
Microphone, they're gonna,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
and I'll turn you.
Apologize. Am I correct in stating that compared to all other municipalities in Brevard County, our millage rate in Indialantic is half or less? Like, we're on the lower half compared to the millage rate of the other.
Yeah, when you look at other places like Satellite Beach, they're going to 7, or coming down, they're at 7.999. Last year, and I haven't got all the numbers in this year, of all the cities that have full-time first responders, police and fire, we were the second lowest.
That's my
Melbourne
point.
Beach is lower than us, but they don't have a fire department.
Right. I mean, for a municipality that has a little over 3,000 residents and a full-time fire department and a full-time police department, our millage rate is, very competitive, I would say. Yeah, compared to, looking at a spreadsheet here, I believe that more than half of the other municipalities are at 6 and above for their millage rate. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty impressive, considering the services we have, the amount of residents we have, and what our millage rate is, so.
And to reiterate it, at Monday's League of Cities dinner, I actually talked to council members and managers from Satellite, Rockledge, West Melbourne, and Indian Harbor. We're there. We're all pretty much the same point. Not all of the same services. If you look at West Melbourne, for instance, they have a paid police department, but not a paid fire. And they have a huge amount of commercial real estate, so their millage rate's quite low. If you look at Granville Carrier, same story, but they don't have paid fire or police. You know, they contract to the county for those services. I don't think Palm Shores has any at all. I think they're just a flat no tax. But again, they contract for their services.
What do you mean by at the same point, Stu? Just so I can
Within
understand what you meant by that.
The changes within
The
a window.
increase or,
Some are decreasing slightly, some are increasing slightly, but the operative word is slightly. Or at least that's the plan. You know, nothing's passed, so that's.
thank you for that data point.
Councilman Strand. If I can give you an example, because our property values are a lot, overall, when you look at the whole property values for the town where they tax off of, where if we went from a 5.9999 to a 6.1, we're only talking $62,000 extra, where other cities have that big, large tax base. So if they see, Satellite Beach, even though I saw what the numbers, they were like $1 million almost they're going backwards a little bit because the property value is increasing.
Just the base is.
The base,
is
yeah.
significantly larger, so therefore any small changes.
What's the increase that you were seeking to that point for what you proposed compared to the rollback rate? Overall, what's the additional revenue you were looking for?
Oh, the additional revenue, so we looked at different numbers. That's why we were down to like what we were last year, but we needed that 5.9999 to make it with all of the things, adding the 2 people for public works and extra police vehicle and stuff.
Did you have a dollar value associated with that amount, approximately?
Probably close to about 90 to 100,000.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, we are not improving the millage rate tonight. We're just setting the maximum number.
No, I understand what we're doing, but I'm trying to understand what's driving that, and so it can go in the record, because folks, again, when taxes increase, being able to put your hat on something and say these are the reasons why helps the understanding. The transparency, as was discussed tonight.
Exactly.
Public comment? All right. All those in favor of approving the 2024-2025 fiscal or millage rate of 5.9999, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right.
Now we do motion 2. Separate.
Motion for workshop, Tim?
Yeah, one more to go.
Yeah, there's a motion 1 and a motion 2.
Okay. I see that.
Yeah.
You can make the motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the workshop and hearing dates for the budget adoption. First budget workshop on Wednesday, August 14th, 2024 at 5 p.m. First public hearing on Wednesday, September 11th at 6 p.m. Second public hearing, Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m.
I'll second.
All right. I was just looking at those dates. Those first 2 are town council days, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have to look at my calendar then. All right. Any discussion on that? Okay. Public comment? Oh,
Hang on, Brett's saying he has something.
So these are, approve the workshop and hearing dates for budget adoption. Is there a reason that our first public hearing starts at normal town council time and it's on a town council day?
it'll just be part of the meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because then, okay, fine by me.
All right. All those in favor of approving the
We
work?
have public comment?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And just to clarify, the council budget workshop starts at 5 p.m., not 6.
Right. Right.
And the second hearing is at 5:30 p.m., not 6.
All right. All those in favor of approving the workshop and hearing dates for the budget adoption, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Moving on. Discuss the State Road 500 FDOT medium project agreement with Arizosa Brothers, Inc., with a cost of $520,000 or $520,220. Mike?
The project won't go away. So we only had one bid come in for this project, and it was much higher than we expected. There was on the next page of the thing, you can see the plant cost was less than we expected, but the miscellaneous was like $100,000 more. The Susan Haller, our architect, landscape architect in this project, feels that this was way overbid and high. Either the people just looking to make a profit or didn't really want the deal. They're out of Miami. And she recommended we go out to rebid. We know one other contractor who was trying to bid at the time was having a problem with getting some bond paperwork together. They've reached out to me and they're available to bid. So I think we're gonna get more bids and better prices. And we've just got to resubmit some stuff to DOT, and Susan and her firm will take care of going that. And I think we can beat that price. And she said the same thing happened last year in Merritt Island, and they went out to rebid and they came back a lot cheaper.
Is there a motion on that?
I move to rebid the Fifth Ave median project.
I'll second.
Can we reject the bid and rebid?
Yes, yes. Counteroffer is a rejection of an original offer, yes.
Yeah.
I have a comment or a question. Mike, what is FDOT requiring from us? Because I think it's...
I know you're talking about that. So FDOT, this isn't even included in that price. We went from like, our town engineer was gonna go out there like, once a day and check on her, or once a week and things. They now want a full-time person from monitoring the project. So we have to have a full-time person from our town engineer's office monitoring it. Not gonna be our town engineer, but somebody else.
Is that normal?
It's not normal they haven't seen it before. It's just FDOT, everything going on.
Can we tell them to go pound sand?
If you can cancel the whole thing,
I mean, are they gonna not work if there's nobody there?
No, we have to follow the regulations with FDOT.
What's the cost of the full-time person estimated at?
So went up $47,000 approximately. That's not included in this number.
$47,000 driven by FDOT's regulatory change.
Correct.
What if we take their signs that they put up and sell them? Can we maybe make a profit on that?
The weight of the metal is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a stop sign.
Right. No, we'll leave the important ones.
Yeah.
This is kind of like having a fireman on a
I will tell
diesel
you,
locomotive.
this whole process has been
Painful.
a pain. I mean, even Susan Hall, who's dealt with them for years, she had an offer from another municipality to come in and do something with FDOT, and based on her experiences with this, she turned them down.
I mean, is any of this retaliatory? I mean, we don't know, but do you think it is?
I don't think on this portion, because it's a separate division.
May I ask a question on the bid? What's driving the one-year establishment period for all scrub and ground covers? I noticed that's $90,000. That's one of the larger pieces in your miscellaneous section. Is that insurance or their pending replacement?
It's pending replacement if something happens to them.
So if nothing, so it's interesting. They want $90,000 in case something happens. So we're fronting money. If nothing is there, then nothing is replaced, then we spent $90,000 in their pocket, correct?
Correct.
What about a negotiation related to when we bid to have sort of what I would call actual replacement costs rather than, I mean, we're upfronting a large amount of money based on a potential. I would negotiate it, urge you to negotiate it differently. Now, I don't know if you can negotiate that within these. I don't mind going out to bid, but you mentioned the drivers of the miscellaneous line, and that is the standout.
Yeah.
By $100,000. And is the irrigation in line, Mike or Joe, with what market rates would be? That's the other big driver in that line, $95,000. So those are the two standouts.
Sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I get what it's for, but I'm asking, is it reasonable for the plans, or is that high as well?
Seems on the high end. But
It may be a little high, yes.
Yeah.
Just a little high,
Yeah, maybe high, yeah,
maybe higher.
higher. Correct.
Okay, that's a lot of money, and boy, I struggle with the establishment period where we're assuming what they're doing is transferring $90,000 of risk to us.
Right. And just for the record, we can't just, as Michael tell you, we can't just go use, Scott Fauché for irrigation, or I know there's some other landscape companies, I want to do it. Well, you got to be approved, which is a process by FDOT.
Yeah, and there's some of the regulations we have to follow because that's FDOT. Like, that's why we go out to bid. We can't open the bids and we can accept them or not accept them, but you can't say, okay, unless you have a good reason they don't qualify the company. But we're going to take the third one. We don't like the lowest one. You kind of got to go where you're at with the lowest bid.
All right, so those are all good points, Lauren, but if we're sending this out to bid, it doesn't really matter, right?
Just making sure I
Yeah.
understand exactly why and what we may be looking for that comes back in front of us related to the numbers, right? What would look better? Okay, now we have sort of a basis to go,
Right.
not just lower price, but I'd be looking at those items and say, are they more in line where Joe's and Mike are nodding their heads? More reasonable.
Brett, you good with going? Oh, yeah, well, you made the motion. All right. Public comment. All right. All those in favor of rejecting this bid and rebidding, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Molly, in the back room, that's 4-0. We're skipping item 3. Item number 4, discuss zoning of 205 South Miramar Avenue. Is that Wendy's?
Yes, it is. So in doing my comprehensive research for the noise ordinance, foot stomping, sorry, I came across the fact that the Wendy's sits astride both the commercial zone and the tourist zone. So for those that can see, you can see where the 38 is there, lots 81, 21, 9, and 20. That's the Wendy's south parking lot.
21, 9, and 20.
Yep, so 6, 7, 22, 23 is the actual restaurant, and I think 5 and 24 is maybe there's north parking lot. So the Wendy's property actually straddles tourist and commercial. The tourist portion, as noted, allows you to build condos. Commercial does not. Prospective buyer might come in and say, hey, my property is both.
Yeah.
Does that mean I can build condos?
Or
townhomes, or a restaurant, or commercial? Do we as a town, given that this for 40 years, 1985, it was built as a Wendy's, and that's been in that format and that usage pattern, want it to remain as a commercial property? Or do we want it to be a tourist property, or we don't care? So it's an opportunity for us to have that discussion, perhaps give direction to ZNP and the town planner to evaluate and consider rezoning it. I don't know if there's legal ramifications because of the sale of the property, but I thought it was an opportunity for us as a town to at least reflect upon how we would want to shape that property use going forward.
Paul, do you have any input before we go?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one is we could go ahead and change the zoning now, and then when whoever takes that property over decides what they want to do, they may have to come in and rezone it further to change it back to some other plan. So in a sense, I'd almost say stand back and wait and see, what you hear. And obviously, whether the property develops as condos or develops as commercial, how it develops is going to be somewhat dependent upon how long it takes for them to go ahead and put together a plan as to what they're going to do on the property, as to whether there's any non-conforming rights, because they do expire after a period of time. And it would also depend upon, the form of what they're proposing for development. But obviously, if they're in the commercial side proposing condos, just because part of the property is zoned tourist, doesn't mean that in the commercial side they could build condos.
Could they
I suspect.
separate the property? I mean, it's obviously platted as such that you could
Yes, they could
retitle.
they could separate the property. They don't, but.
It's 200 width there.
But the, you know, the zoning isn't gonna be the issue there. The issue is, you know, do they wanna sell part of it off to the people in the north and part of it off to the people in the south? You know, it's, so.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting.
It is.
Factoid, and we ought to, as a
It
council, at
is.
least be aware of it and decide if there's anything we
It is.
want to consider.
Mike, the size of that property?
It's 200 by 200.
Okay, so it's under an acre,
Yeah.
so it can't be a gas station.
No.
Good.
Can't be a gas station.
Doug,
Yeah, Doug, you're the expert on land use from all your years. Did you have a recommendation when you brought it up? Did you have any thoughts about what you might suggest to us?
Well, I mean, from a land use perspective, if they keep the format that it's in, there's really no practical difficulty or, well, there might be a practical difficulty if they want to do something specific. But if they were to tear down the Wendy's and want to build something new, there's no Board of Adjustment appeal because you're starting from scratch, so you have to comply. There's no hardship. There's not an unusual shaped property or.
is there something you're trying to avoid? I mean,
Well, my initial thought was, would I rather see condos there or would I rather see a commercial,
Right.
usually a restaurant, you know, everybody wants a rooftop bar on the beach.
right.
I mean, again, that has nothing to do with this. I mean,
Right.
you know, at one point, you know, we don't want another surf style. Maybe we'll get one, I don't know, but,
They're selling the other property.
that was the rumor, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, my thought was just, is there anything we want to do as a town to influence what goes there? Disappointed, obviously, we just finally, maybe not to the best outcome we wanted, but we are finally getting rid of the old Ocean View, you know, slab, and now we're gonna have a Wendy's. That's hopefully doesn't turn into the old Pizza Hut, because that's not what I want, obviously, is a abandoned building sitting there right in the smack boardwalk, again.
So you really didn't have a compelling vision for what it should be, and allowing it to have flexibility that allows the seller and the buyer a range of flexibility may be in their favor to do it? Because, I mean, versatility with a particular property is an asset potentially to the both seller and buyer, right?
Correct.
Because I've got usage
Yeah.
here.
My personal opinion when I first uncovered this, if you will, would be that I would not want to see condos there. I'd rather see something that the community could use. In an ideal scenario, we come across $5 million, we can buy it and turn it into a park, you know.
Skate park.
You're a lawyer, you want to take on that liability? Anyway.
Sovereign immunity, we're good.
Community center.
Anyway, I think, you know, those were the thoughts that went through my head is that, you know, on the spectrum of things, the townhouses and condos.
Here's what will happen, in my opinion, as is. It'll be, but I don't even know if they'd be able to work this with setbacks and parking requirements, but it would currently be a loophole possibility avenue to do a mixed-use project, right? Because of the way it's divided. But I do think the setbacks and parking would be an issue.
The setbacks would probably be an issue.
So what's gonna happen is, just because of the greater value, they're gonna petition to rezone the commercial side residential so they can put condos.
Exactly.
So, I agree with Doug. I mean, if we are gonna take any sort of active stance or position, just because there's nowhere else to go, if the town and the people desire to see a little bit of commercial there, I think it's kind of advantageous. We want something there just because of how busy Wavecrest gets with the tourists and such.
You touched on something that has been bandied about from time to time, and rarely spoken out loud in the council, but one way to drive property value is to do mixed use. And it has been talked about, and I'm not proposing it for this aspect, but when we talk about Fifth Avenue, if you wanted to redevelop Fifth Avenue and get the buildings refreshed, renewed, rebuilt, mixed use on Fifth Avenue is one way to do that. Now, not proposing we do that or discuss that scope tonight, but for this particular carve-out, C3, we can make it C4 or whatever, that would allow for mixed use. And now the property value does get that bump up, and you potentially get a better outcome all around.
So I'm interested in doing mixed use, but I would want it to be more like properly, comprehensively done with like the town planner and such. I wouldn't.
Yeah, fair, I agree.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do a one-off in this. So I think we actually have to address this before.
Well, what happens if we just make it tourist district? I mean, part of it is.
Condos,
It's gonna be
the most
condos.
values is condos.
Or it'll end up just being a big Airbnb place, right?
Is that bad?
Same thing.
No, it's not bad.
What do we want?
I guess the parking's gonna be the big, I would need to look up what our requirements are parking-wise for like a restaurant. Because how nice would it be if it was like a two-story, properly done, you know what I mean, nice, restaurant, bar type situation.
With live music.
There's a provision in state law now that preempts local regulation. I haven't read it in some time, but it allows, whether you want it or not, it allows mixed use if it's commercial.
Is it like part of the Live Local thing that came out recently, or?
I think it was adopted 2 or 3 years ago.
So if it was commercial and that was allowed as a permitted use, then we would be able to cheat code it in.
They could do mixed use.
I mean, that area would be perfect for it. It's a blending area anyways, right? I mean, right between commercial on the one side and residential on the other, or the tourist residential. So yeah, it's whether or not we want to do something actively to change it, or we wait for a developer to see what they request, and then we kind of get in a precarious situation because we might not like what they want, but don't really have the ability to.
Yeah, at that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
They're coming with a plan.
Right. I mean, they're still going to if they want to do, I mean, they'll most likely have to petition for some sort of form of rezoning there.
Yes, to make it, I mean, that's the most, I agree with you. Most likely outcomes residential condos or townhouses.
Yeah. And then we'll never get that back.
I'm leaning to oppose that because you've got to step very, very lightly when you're talking about making a decision on a seller's property and we're not hearing the side of the seller. And I respect zoning that we do, but remember, you're dealing with someone who's invested in that property and we don't know what the buyer wants to do. Does government have a compelling reason at this moment to rezone based on what may be seen from the seller's viewpoint as your preferences on what you'd like to see there on our property, which may affect their resale value? So I opt from a government viewpoint to let things happen. While I respect you bringing it up and you're paying close attention, I love that with land use, I want to tread very lightly here.
And my basis would be, it has been a commercial property for the past 40 years.
Right.
So it's consistent with its use and business and the town's existence. We wouldn't be substantially changing, but I don't know.
Yeah, we have better grounds.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, that would be my basis for the case of doing so.
Well, can I ask a question? Is it going to be for sale? Or is it hypothetically?
A little bit of both. So I think at some point, a real estate agent contacted Cliff to get some information on the zoning, but we don't have any more solid information than that.
Yeah. Wendy's shut down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
I did see somebody at the drive-up the other day. They were waiting.
Yeah.
It's a
Service was always slow there.
Yes, it is owned by.
The hamburgers were cold.
It's a franchisee, so
I mean, they could
nobody
reopen
sells.
it.
Yeah, they
I
couldn't
don't know.
sell to another franchise.
Yeah, fair.
What I was told was it was sold, the franchise was sold to somebody else, to another company. They went bankrupt.
Chick-fil-A.
And, yeah, could you imagine the traffic on A1A?
Ain't coming this far.
And I was told that it will be in bankruptcy for a long time. True or not, but it's probably the same real estate agent. Anyway, so we're leaving it.
That's the discussion. I don't know if we want to give direction to town staff to look at it, to research anything, or if we just want to kick it around our heads and come back around to it. Reach out to the owner, the seller, do the best that can. I just think being proactive about it.
Yeah.
Better than not, because it could end up with another surf-style building.
Yeah.
Not maybe that exact brand, but the competitor.
You know, if you want to really control what goes on there, buy it.
Right. Well, and that's an option.
It is, it is.
You know, we could put it to the town.
That's
Community
probably the most
center.
practical option.
Good spot for a police department.
I heard Public Works.
We could watch the cars, we right there when the cars hit the boardwalk, I mean.
Oh, we need to add that to the.
Yeah.
What's that, Mitch Buchanan?
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about the new town attorney's office.
I did see somebody actually, they suggested, I think it was on Nextdoor, closing Fifth and buying Wendy's and make that the entrance to Wavecrest.
That's an expensive.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's
so
an
maybe
expensive driveway.
Maybe it would be to go off and figure out what the fair market value is for that piece of property would be the next piece of information. It's probably way more than we want to afford.
Remember, we got to bond it if we do that.
No, I'm aware, yeah. You have to
Yeah.
put it
That's-
out to-
that's a
you have to
long
put it out to
process,
vote.
too.
It'd be a point of interest. Somebody's going to ask that question.
Yeah.
If we just have the answer, at least it's useful.
Yeah, my brief discussion with the real estate agent was probably a $5 million property.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's what I would guess.
All right, enough about
But
that.
never discount tax advantages and other reasons that sellers may sell something to you out of a portfolio at a reduced price, depending on when they're moving to a town or municipality or other charitable interests. So I wouldn't assume that that's the case when you approach people. There's been certain projects in Brevard County that have gotten below property price based on the usage, right? Usually a municipal, a church, there's certain other things that have gone on that I've seen happen. So I wouldn't assume it's going to be that. I would approach and just ask. If it were to be used for a police department or a community center or some community, what arrangement could we have?
Public comment.
Mike Borges, 443 10th Avenue. Just a potential point of interest, when that property was purchased most recently, they wanted to do away with the public showers.
Showers, yeah.
There, so that may come up again. That was a big point of contention.
Who owns the showers?
So
Who owns the showers?
Wendy's. So back in the original agreement they had with them, the showers were part of the agreement for the building back in the 80s.
Oh, they're already there.
They weren't that there.
They made them put them in.
Oh, okay.
So,
Plus buy a golf cart for parking enforcement. I think that was part of it.
and then also they were supposed to have like their staff, which they haven't done in years, pick up trash out there a couple times a day.
What about parking? Is there anything we can do so people aren't parking there?
What do you mean, put more?
Yeah, I mean, is there anything we can do to discourage people parking there? Yeah, I mean, other than, I guess, a barricade, but we can't do that. That's the
As the property owner, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
If they want to control it, they have to.
So I guess it's up to them. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of free parking going on.
Yeah. All right. Other public comment?
Diogo Drados, 420 11th Ave. I think you still on that at some point. But mixed zoning, that sounds great. I know you're not supposed to talk about that now. You guys kind of just passed it around a little bit. I love the idea of mixed zoning. Fucking guinea pig it. Thanks.
Thank you. That it?
Mr. Mayor, two things. The 75th Anniversary Committee,
Yeah.
that the Heritage wants to know if you want to do something about that. It's in November of 2027 would be our 75th anniversary. For the 50th, they put a committee together, and I don't think the Heritage Committee's up to doing it, they said.
I have not finalized my plans for tomorrow. So 2027 is a long way away. But yeah, I mean, we can do that.
We will do something for the 75th, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing you want to talk about, Oakland.
Yeah. So the 400 block of Oakland, where there's the storm drain issue, we have it in the budget to go do the repair there. I guess there was discussion on looking for grant money for that.
Was there?
That was one of our stormwater projects. We have the money available. We have the plans designed, and you talked about maybe getting state funding.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things, that Herodopoulos was talking about, getting grant money for that kind of thing. And we have the money to match it already, you know, so does it make sense to go after
We
grant
talking
money?
grant or appropriation?
Appropriation. I'll be honest, I'm not sure the difference. But yeah, state appropriations.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Stu.
I was just gonna say, it just delays the process.
Yeah, and residents are,
Mm.
there was an email this week about why is it not getting done, so.
Mm.
Yeah, so if we have the money then we know what the project costs and it's in budget, I would advocate that we proceed, unless we have a clear and obvious plan to get the appropriations to match. And we can certainly go and get appropriations for other.
future
for
projects.
projects, just to get ahead of the 8 ball, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, we'll go out to bid and get everything updated and stuff and start that process.
Cool.
Got it, Joe?
Anything to report, Mike?
No, not really. Hopefully, no storms avoid us like they have over in Texas.
Yeah.
He said it.
I know.
Paul?
No report.
What was I gonna say? The, next door somewhere, people were talking about, the tortoises, the triangle by Publix, requesting, speed bumps, so we'll talk about that.
Elevated crosswalk.
Elevated crosswalk
tortoises.
for the tortoises. Well, you know, there are places that do, tunnels under roads for the
They're not
tortoises.
gonna go where you want them to go. That's the short answer.
J-
The drivers.
at JFK Airport, they do. They have tunnels under the runways for turtles, yeah. And fences, so,
Only the ones that are alive go in the tunnel. The
Right.
ones that you don't know about.
right. But yeah, so we can maybe talk about that next month. I thought Mike was gonna be, I had my dates crossed, I thought Mike was out of town for this meeting, so. Stu?
This one, state mandated 4-hour ethics course is available on the 27th of this month via the Florida League of Cities, and it's an online.
Will that be available afterwards for rewatch?
Usually it's recorded and available to watch. I can't say they're going to do that this time, but that's normal process, procedure. So if you want to sign up, and you need continuing education credit, you can't do that by you can't get the credit by just watching. You get the credit by actually doing it during the 4-hour period that they do it, or 6 hours really. It's just available. If you're interested, go to Florida League of Cities website and sign up. But we do have to do it.
Doug?
Congratulations to Stu and his final year in the Florida League of Cities as being a home rule advocate hero. Received his award on Monday at the
Cool.
Space Coast League of Cities dinner. So congratulations.
Well
to Stu.
deserved.
We greatly appreciate all your work that you've done for the town. It pays off in dividends that is not obvious and apparent on a day-to-day basis. So we greatly appreciate that. Two, I'll just note, I traded some texts with Mike earlier this week since we had another hit and run, or literally they hit the barricade and then they ran away, the boardwalk rather, excuse me, about evaluating putting in some kind of traffic calming chicane or something when they go through that, because clearly our Welcome to Indialantic Beach sign is not enough at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's properly liquored up. So hopefully we can solve that issue. Other than that, that is all I have to report. Thank you very much.
Lauren?
Yeah, not associated with the discussion tonight, I wanted to announce that I will not be seeking reelection this year, and I encourage any residents that want to step up to take my seat may certainly do so, and I wish them the best, and it's been a real pleasure, and I will continue to do my best all the way through the end of my term. I've been here for every meeting, I've been prepared, and I've not cost us anything. So I just wanted to let people know, because you need time to put in those packets because it's somewhat onerous. So I just wanted to let folks know.
Thank you. Brett?
Well, I just want to say that I respect your decision, but I'm bummed by your choice, because I was really hoping that you would stay with us. I think you do a great job, Lauren. You truly care about this town and the residents deeply. You put in a lot of time and effort, homework. You're very thorough. You ask a lot of, some people would say in the weeds questions, but, detailed questions for the benefit of the town. And I was gonna bring this up without you even announcing this, that, it's unfortunate that there were some allegations against you tonight. I wasn't there for any conversation, but knowing you and your character, that, I highly doubt that you harassed anybody. If somebody misunderstood your communication style, maybe that's the situation, but I know that your heart is nothing but true and good intent, so, I wish you were same, but look forward to your help in other ways.
And I will say, thank you for what you've done, and I'm kind of sorry that you're leaving.
Thank you. It's very kind.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming.